Hello, everyone, and welcome to the VATcast. Today is Sunday, April 6th of 2025, and we have a great show lined up for you today featuring our guest Ephemeral. We'll be discussing OSU mapping, and so much more. A few things to mention, of course, is that this podcast here, or this talk show, if you want to call it that, I think there's some debate as to whether or not it's actually a podcast or not, but it's hosted by the Vocaloid Appreciation Team, which is a community for Vocaloid appreciators. Primarily mapping oriented, but you don't have to be either a Vocaloid appreciator or a mapper to be participating. We do things like the Vocaloid mapping contest, watch parties for Vocaloid events, collaborative mapping projects, and other things. Sometimes we just hang out. So if you're interested in supporting or participating in any of those things, feel free to join our community. Links you can find below on whatever platform you're watching on. Of course, you can find the video for this posted on our YouTube. But if you are watching live, we do encourage audience interaction. So we're definitely monitoring the chat throughout the show. If you have a question or something you want to ask Ephemeral, feel free to post it in the chat, and we can respond to it on the show. With that being said, let's go ahead and get started. How you doing, Ephemeral?
I'm doing okay. It is 6 a.m. for me, and this is normally when I'm about to sleep. So forgive me if I'm a little stilted. But all good.
Yes. Well, you just had a nap, so it can't be that bad.
I did, but we all know how naps work. You take one, and it's like, oh, this didn't help at all.
Well, no,
this only made things worse.
It takes some time for it to kick in. In like 20 minutes, you'll have so much energy.
You'll be ready for a whole new day.
I was hoping that would be the case 20 minutes ago. Oh well. It wasn't getting old, I guess.
Yeah, that's how it is.
One more DLC on the pile.
And if anyone has any issues with the audio levels, just let me know in the chat. How you doing, Half Slashed?
I'm chilling. I'm ready to podcast. Our little delay brought me time to do my errands, so that's it. All we got is to yap.
Yeah, I got a lot of work done as well in that little delay that we had. It was supposed to be 2 hours ago, so sorry for anyone who got messed up with that. But maybe Nafi can explain how that happened.
So, it's 12 p.m. And I feel like it's still 10 a.m. And Ephemeral pings us and he's like, yo, we're starting in 4 hours, right? And I'm like, yeah, we're starting at 2. It's 10 a.m., right? It was, in fact, 2 hours away. And then Ephemeral went to take his nap. Half Slash went to go do an errand. And the next thing you know, the whole thing is delayed because I have no brain.
So I can't believe Half Slash would do this.
Brains are kind of out of fashion. Brain worms are very in. That's kind of what I'm gonna say there. So
that does sound like somebody who lives in California.
Actually, that's someone that's in DC right now. But
what's she doing in DC?
No. I'm not the one with the brainworm here. Like,
What?
I'm throwing some shade. Come on, man.
To who? Nafi?
No, never mind.
Anyways, okay. I think I got what you're saying. I was not ready for the politics.
We had some it was just a subtle dig, man. But anyways, so brainworms aside, yeah, ready. We're ready.
Let's go. Well, how was your month, Half Slashed?
It was completely uneventful, but what's not uneventful is Ephemeral's past. So I want to just dive into that.
Oh, okay. We're just going right into that, huh?
Go for it.
That's fine. We'll come back to the other things that we had planned.
Straight to the hardest questions.
Yeah.
Half Slash is like, enough with this introduction BS. We're going straight to the heart of the matter.
Get to what the people want.
Get to what the people want. They came for the spice, right? Like,
well, they'll definitely be in the past, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. All right, well, go ahead, Half Slash. Do what you're gonna do.
Oh, well, we're really just gonna bypass all your announcements of the things that are going on, and I'm just saying,
Hey,
I'm just
hey.
talking about what I'm excited for.
Hey, I'm just here for the ride, just like you. So if this is where the ride's taking us,
All right. Okay. Well, I mean, first, I think we should at least start with like a basic intro of like ephemeral. Why don't you just tell us guess like what you have done like in your time in OS, because you've been around a while, to say the least. At least I've seen appearances from you from dating back to at least 2009, but you were probably around before then. So, yeah.
I think that's when I joined, wasn't it? I don't know. Let me check. Yeah, April 2009. That's when I rocked up. I don't know. I guess I kind of got like semi noticed after I made a really really shit difficulty for fucking Bad Apple and hosted that set. That's most people's first encounter with me, I think. But before that, I was kind of like back when modding happened in like an IRC channel. I used to like hang around in mod a lot and post on the forums and shit, and then that eventually led to me getting uh eventually after a couple of rounds of politics, because that was all the rage back then, added to the BAT, or the beatmap. Fuck, what was the what iteration of it was the first one that had?
The first one was BAT. You were correct. Yeah, it was Beatmap Appreciation Team, or Beatmap Approval Team, I think maybe they called it. So
Had one of those two.
I think it was
tracks.
approval. I think it was something boring to start, but yeah.
It was probably something boring to start. Yeah, Peppy hates that shit, so it was probably something boring to start. But yeah, I started off from there, and the rest is history, really. I don't know. I guess I'm responsible for a lot of like the contests, mostly like the fan art contests and shit. I helped get the featured artist program off the ground alongside Pishy when it was just getting started. I've stood in for World Cup stuff as a commentator, and I operated the Streambox briefly. And I don't know, people like to call me a community manager or something like that. I don't know, it's something like that.
Okay. Yeah. So you actually have a user title right now called Inland Empire, and before you used to have, I think, one called Lord Farquaad or something. Like you had something funny as your previous one.
Wow.
Can you give some context on your user titles?
Which do you want first, the old one or the current one?
Let's start with the old and let's get to the new.
The old one, I believe, was a test that just never got changed, because we used to have a moderation console called ACP, and for anyone who's not aware, the old OS website, like not the current one, it's long since changed, but it used to be built off a very heavily modified version of PHPBB, which was like a popular open source forum software at the time. And the way that worked is that like all the user groups and shit were all like PHPBB groups, and they would link into the PHPB admin and control panel, or ACP as we used to call it. And getting ACP was kind of like being handed the keys to the car, so to speak.
Yep.
And I recall there was something going on about testing titles at the time, or something, or someone changed someone else's title to a really stupid thing, so I just changed mine to a really stupid thing in response, and kind of just left it there until it got changed. I don't remember why it was Lord Farquaad. I think I was making fun of someone at the time.
Shrek.
That would be something.
I think that's a Shrek reference.
It's definitely a Shrek reference. That would be something that 2011 me would have done, would be to do that kind of thing. As for the current one, it was a gift, I think, to celebrate my retirement, which was supposed to happen last year or something, like when I stepped down, ? It was kind of like a gift from Locktab and a couple of other members of the team, because I'm a very big fan of Disco Elysium, in the sense that I consider it like probably the greatest piece of media ever made at the moment. So that's where that comes from. And Locktab's also played it, and he's just like, I guess we'll call him Inland Empire. I think him and Valavucci and a couple of people all came together. It was a touching little farewell.
Oh.
Or was it part of
So-
community contributor? I don't remember. Something
So
like that.
I have a friend of mine that recommended I play Disco Elysium, and he said don't like make sure you like don't ignore the necktie. Please don't explain that what it is, but I just thought of that when you said that. So
Yeah, it's that's more apt than you think it is, and you should play the game completely blind.
okay, all right, yeah.
Totally blind. I can't even waffle to it. As much as I want to like waffle to people about Disco Elysium, it kind of kills it if you just go on about it. So, but it's kind of like Undertale in that regard.
Mm. Yeah, speaking of which, I think they're doing Deltarune's like episodes 1 through 4 now, something.
Yeah,
I think those are
I've
coming
seen
out
that.
soon. So that's cool.
Weirdly, Deltarune hasn't had the kind of impact on me that Undertale did. I haven't really been as excited to follow as I thought I would be. I think I played like chapter 1 and then stopped or something.
It's the episodic thing for me. I had a similar experience with this rhythm game called Vivid Stasis, where they released the story in episodes, and so it was harder to stay engaged than if I just ran through the whole thing. So kind of
Yeah,
it reminds me of anime.
I think you're right. I think the allure of like Undertale is you could just do it in one brick and then be punched in the feelings repeatedly that one time.
Yep.
And it's kind of like a one and done thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to dig into that the community manager stuff that you mentioned, because so from my perspective, like one does not simply just become community manager, and I think in particular you started to fill that role a lot more after Locktab was stepping back. So can you tell us about that transition? I think it was in the 2017-2018 era.
I think it was predicated on a major point that I was gone for a lot of the time he was like ascendant, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I had a year and a half or a 2-year period. I think when halfway during my university degree actually, when I don't know, I get my dates so mixed up. It's around that time frame, I think. But yeah, I don't know. There's not the community management. I guess isn't something you just necessarily kind of like go, oh yeah, I'll do that. It's something you kind of just like get described as because you're doing things. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't-
It's so I've actually seen some analogs like this in the professional setting where the people that end up becoming, managers or like getting to like higher tiers of management are the ones that are able to facilitate things happening regardless of kind of the hierarchy, I guess. And I think you ended up in that position where it's just like people would get stuck and then you'd know how to fix it, right? So
Something like that. I wouldn't say necessarily knows how to fix it all the time because like that's very clearly very very many instances of this in Osa's history where I clearly don't know how to fucking fix something.
mhm.
But yeah, I guess that's about right. It's something you kind of just sort of just happens to you. Like, you see something and it's like, okay, that needs to get done. So you just kind of do it. And then once you do that long enough, people start kind of like looking at you whenever they need something done. They're kind of just like, oh, you just sort of make that happen. So they just sort of wait for you and that just kind of happened.
Yeah.
It just
So
kept happening.
something
So I just like, okay.
last episode we talked with Peppy, and I was mentioning something to him of like having the kind of like relationship with the devs and such that it seemed like it was easier in the early years like 2010 to 2015 compared to now. Do you think that had any factor or bearing on why you were able to reach out to people and get things solved?
Oh yeah, dude, immeasurably. Like it's a completely different fucking game nowadays from when I came in. And that's the standard old person thing to say, right? Oh, this shit was fucking this shit was completely different when I first started. Yeah, everyone says that when they've been in something for longer than like 3 or 4 years, but with OS, it's really apparent to me in particular because like kind of watched it nebulize, like I kind of watched it fragment from being like IRC centric and forum centric to being like Discord centric and like really watching it spread out and watching people from different classes of the community talk less. And I remember Peppy and I have had a bunch of discussions about like trying to get people back on the platform to bring that sort of like old feeling to OS back, but
Mm-hmm.
the whole Discord thing is kind of a Pandora's box. Once it's open, it's not getting shut again, and I don't really know what we can do.
How do
Save
you
having,
think
like-
the social media like growth has played into that? Because I know the OS community, a lot of it's also spread to Twitter and I guess Blue Sky now.
Twitter and Reddit and shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got kind of mixed feelings about it. Like, I know we've had visibly a rocky relationship with the Reddit, yeah, the Reddit. Holy crap, what happened to my voice there? The Reddit, the Reddit, um, throughout pretty much all of its history until maybe relatively recently, I guess, because they were always kind of like founded by people that, Hmm, I don't know, they had rocky histories themselves, I suppose. We had frequent disagreements about the kind of things that should be visible on that subreddit, especially regarding to like restricted users and stuff. So that kind of hampered a lot of the early uptake. And I think we even had at one point we had a kind of an official like sister subreddit that the OS community subreddit or something that tried to take share from that and miserably failed because you
Yeah.
can't dictate what subreddit that people use. It's just not possible,
Mm-hmm.
like straight up. But yeah, in that aspect, I guess the initial collision of it with kind of the old way didn't work out so good. But now I think it's probably like one of the main ways that people tend to interact with like the meta of the community meta. Does that make sense? Like I think they do that mostly through Reddit and through Twitter now. I don't think any of that happens on the board or in the forums much.
Yeah, it's kind of like
in-game chat.
the player sphere, I think, dominates Reddit, and the mapper sphere dominates Twitter, Blue Sky, etc. Those types of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't see
actually,
too much
on that note, what do you think about the divide between those communities? Because everything that I've read and even what I experienced when I first started the game was that there wasn't as much separation between the players and the mappers. And even to some extent, you can see this with other game modes like Tycho, Catch, and Mania, where a lot of the high end play and the high end players and the high end mappers are very much the same a lot of the time. There's a lot of interplay. Standard has a diverging scene. So what do you think about that?
It was like that early on in Standard too. Like James used to be like stupid good at the game for the time, and he was one of the people that kind of like first really made the whole flow thing a commonality in the mapping sphere. So I think what I've noticed over time though, and I'm certainly a beneficiary of this, is that you get people that come in to any space over time and they may not necessarily interact with that space in the same way that the people that came before did. And I don't know, it sounds like a really obvious thing to say, but like when you contextualize it for someone like James, for example, he's had the experience of being able to play like all of the development and mapping up until the point where he started mapping himself. And so he's had that kind of that silent knowledge behind it that he's able to apply and make cool things. And then you get some new player come along and they come into the scene and they only have like a sample of maybe 10 maps that they saw that they played off the front page, and that kind of initial exposure sort of dictates how they then approach their active creation, so how they map stuff. And I think over time, as that window of content that people has gotten exposed to has kind of like shrunk, we've sort of moved into a sphere where like you get people that like come into the mapping scene or whatever, and they can come from influences that you've like never heard of, and their influence is like 6 to 10 or 20 creators deep in like the relationship chain to who you're familiar with. And then that kind of like it gives the impression that maybe the newer people don't like really know what they're doing so much. I think that's kind of something I've taken away from it over time. Like a lot of the new talent kind of gets looked at that way, as far as I can tell. I could be completely wrong there though.
I think it's a pretty interesting take, because it's the people that are celebrated, and notorious or renowned, whichever words you would like. They're actually a lot of them are predicated on rejecting the old in favor of the new. So it's like these are the people held in high regard by the people that are up and coming. and they are held in high regard in part because they reject some of the past. So like I know like you're talking about James. Peppy was talking about James. Nobody. First of all, the people that know who James is at that upper echelon, they will wholesale reject all of it, most of their philosophy. And they're, for example, if they're gonna have an inclination towards a mapper on the old side, they're looking at people like Lesja, right? Who actually did have that modern, like freer sort of style, even under the constraints of some of the past eras of mapping.
Yeah, he did, but he came considerably after James did, so it's conceivable that he was in the same bubble, influenced by that stuff early on.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
By
But,
today's standards, they're both super old.
Yeah.
super
It's like one generation apart to me, right? Like it's just like there was James and then there was Lesja, right?
Yeah, they're certainly around the similar time frames, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could kind of see what I mentioned earlier, sort of happening now with Sotarks, where like people have been like ragging on Sotark stuff since like time immemorial, but like you're starting to really see like new gamut of players that are sort of like interacting with the 8th or 10th generation of like Sotarks inspired content, and now he's starting to get kind of like his stuff acknowledged as the old, and it's kind of sort of like moving to the wayside and being replaced or scorned or called like slop or whatever people fucking call it these days.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So that brings me to another point of like I always conceived of something called that I like to call the Osu cycle. And it is essentially the fact that the community pretty much cycles reliably within 1.5 to 3 year cycles. Sometimes it's somewhere in between there, where it's like a new generation of mappers and just like dominant player content creators and such will cycle through. Um, and what are your thoughts on that? Because like from my perspective, you experienced like 6 of these, right? And for my like for me, I think I've experienced maybe 3 or 4 of them. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, that definitely happens. I completely agree with you. It's generally about 1.5 years or like 3 years cycle that like that the player base filters in and out, and I think it's because a lot of people like come across hosts like when they're teenagers. Like I did, I think I was like 16 when I first came here, and they have that initial like 2 years where they're like still in school or like they're still relatively able to invest in it a lot. They have that initial exposure, and then kind of once they hit the like 1 year or 2.5 year mark, they start to like fade out a bit because of like life constraints or just because they get bored. Because like most people don't hold focus on like one game that resolutely for that long. In fact, I'd hazard to say probably like 90 to 95% of people don't. Like most people probably move on to something else past like 6 months to a year. So
Yeah, except for us unique individuals, right?
yeah, I mean, I never expected I'd be here this long. It's dang,
Uh,
honestly.
oh god, me neither. Me neither. Like it was for me. It was like I came into the game when I was 17, and now it's just like, oh shit, I'm getting old.
I mean, speaking of being here this long, can you talk a little bit about your supposed departure from Osu and then what brought you back?
Well, it wasn't a departure. Oh, I guess it kind of was. I mean, I said I'd straight up retired, but I'd been thinking since probably about the year 13 or year 12 mark that like I didn't want to become one of those fixtures that kind of like gets bolted on to a game. Like you'll see it a lot where like a game or a thing or community becomes kind of dependent on like a personality inherent in it. So like you'll have like one person who's like really strongly like bound to it, and I was kind of noticing signs of people getting sort of reliant on me in that regard around about year 12. And I don't wanted to I never wanted to be the person that was kind of like a barnacle at the top that was just unassailable. And I kind of like started looking for people around then to sort of like take on the reins so I could settle back and maybe work on some like more personal projects in the space again. And that took a long time to eventuate. Actually, it took a lot longer than I really wanted it to. It was only around about last year, about a year and a half ago, where I got to the point where I felt comfortable actually like stepping down because I wasn't sure before then whether everything would fucking just fall into a heap or not. that's not to make myself like sound self-important or anything, but it's just kind of like the way of how it is when people kind of like rely on you for that sort of thing. I wanted to make sure I divested myself enough from being the key holder, I guess, to make sure that things could go on without me. And it seems like that's been the case since I've been gone, so I'm happy for that. I just kind of just felt like it was time, I guess. And then recently in November, December last year, I went to Japan for the first time with my partner, and as part of the trip, Peppy kind of like he met us at the airport when we landed, came all the way out from Yokohama to see us, which is pretty cool.
Oh,
First time in 15 years I'd ever met him, and I was like, the first words I said to him, I think, was, "Wow, you're shorter than I thought you'd be." Like,
oh
I'm
my
not, I'm not
god.
hugely, I'm not tall myself. Like, not for an Australian. I think I'm like, what is it? What with American? I think I'm like 5'10" or something in American.
Okay,
Well, let me
that's
check.
pretty average.
Yeah, it's not for an Australian. Like most Australians are above like 6'2", 6'4".
Mm.
The goldfish effect over here. Okay, no, it's not 5'10". Pardon me, I'm 5'7". That's a bit better.
Oh,
Yeah, so
okay, that's
5'7"
almost
is kind of, it's like, it's like average short. I'm not gonna draw crowds about it, that's for sure. But I think Peppy's like 5 feet tall.
Wait, he's shorter than me?
Damn.
He's very short.
He's shorter than me?
He's very short, but like I don't know. He biked up to the airport from Yokohama, and like two of the meetups we had, he like biked. He doesn't take public transport. He just bikes everywhere. So he's like the fucking Energizer Bunny, man. It's ridiculous.
Wow.
I've never seen anyone bike as hard as he does. He's so fit. It's like disgusting how fit he is. Anyway, where was I going with that? Oh yeah, okay, yeah. He met me at the airport, and it was pretty cool. And then I kind of visited the office for the first time, and being there and seeing the venerable office after like 15 years of pretty much like, because I'd never met him before that, right? Like he's Australian, so he comes back to Australia every now and then, but I'd never seen him because he goes over to a stay across, which is like a 3 or 4 hour flight. And for the
Yeah.
longest time, I had kind of a thing about flying. I wasn't really huge on it, and I didn't go. It's why I kind of like never gone to conventions or anything close, despite being like invited every time. But last year, I decided, yeah, we'd go, and met him there. And then he's kind of just like, you didn't have to go. You could have just stayed. And I'm just kind of like, what, really? And he's like, yeah, I mean, you can come back if you want. Like, I legitimately never said you had to go. He didn't. I made the decision on my own. And then it's kind of just like, oh, yeah, okay, well, maybe I'll come back and see if I can help things along again. Because, I was kind of like on the cusp of turning into something new, like, again, because of laser. Like, it's like, I know we've been saying it for years, but laser is like, it's getting close to being like the full replacement. And I think now more than ever, you can see it in people playing and things like the editor improvements, and people like slowly getting more accustomed to laser being like the primary way to play things, I think. And I think in maybe like another year and a half, that'll have doubled again, and it'll be a quarter of the player base at that point. And then maybe another year and a half after that, it'll be half or sooner. So, it's kind of like this is in like a really big liminal phase at the moment. And I think he kind of wanted me back to sort of help through that, since I've got a big foot in the old side of things, and he finds that valuable. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll come back. And that's been the case for the past 3 months. So I'm not here in the same capacity that I used to be, but I am here again. So it's kind of nice to be back.
So so here's the thing. I'm sorry. Actually, Nafi, please go ahead because I'm gonna take forever.
I was just saying welcome back. I think I get what you meant about being bolted in, because there's been more than one time that you were gone that we were like, oh my god, we wish F was here.
The debolting didn't go as well as I'd hoped. Let me put it that way.
Yeah. So, all right, I'm curious because I've experienced something similar, like with Corsace myself. So I'm curious to you. When you came back, did you like what you saw? I guess. Like, because when you were in my perspective, you were pretty central to, it's like if someone in the community needs something done, you go to Ephemeral because he's the one that knows how to do it. And then it's like now you're gone, someone else has to figure that out. And then so we already talked about how it's harder to do that. Did you like what you saw when you came back? I guess.
If I'm completely honest, no, not really.
Yeah.
I didn't see much change, and what I did see change, it felt kind of like, how do I describe it? I don't know. It didn't feel ample or substantial. It sort of just felt like stuff was in a holding pattern. If that made sense.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of been my experience. It's kind of hard because on one hand you have the bias of you put on all this effort and you know what it takes, and then other people have not figured that out yet, and they obviously have less years on it than you. On the other hand, it's like the situation has also changed such that it's actually much harder. So it's like now even in contact with the same people, it's like they may not, you just don't know all the levers to pull. Yeah, because it's like they know the people, but they don't know like who needs to actually talk to what to get certain things done. And how to persuade, right? Because I think the big thing that the community has lacked from my POV is the ability to persuade upwards. So how to make the compelling arguments. So mainly because of lack of understanding of upper perspectives.
By that sense, you're more or less saying they don't know how to translate things to peppy speak.
Yeah. That's it.
It's people. It's pretty much that. Yeah, I don't know. People have come to me for that since time immemorial. I don't know. I just get how to convey things to him, I suppose. But it's not only just that. It's kind of that I feel like the people in charge of things now are not really necessarily willing to do the wet work. Like no one. What do I mean by wet work? Okay, well, when you're in like a kind of like a political space or a social space, there's always some kind of dynamics that comes into play about like maneuvering people like to do things for people, kind of like shuffling them around a bit. It sounds so fucking Machiavellian or like try hard code gay ass when I say it like that. I don't mean it like that, but there is some degree of like people chess you have to do, and sometimes part of people chess is flipping the board over and making a big fucking scene about it.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's many table flippers left, or we're not really getting any table flippers, or the table flippers are just kind of like getting filtered out by like the 50 million meshes of filters we have to make sure that people that get to the point where they can table flip aren't the kind that will table flip. Does that make sense?
Ding 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 ding. You're spot on. Like at least
they won't flip the fucking tables, and like I've been immeasurably unpopular in the past sometimes for flipping the tables because I've only ever flipped them when I feel like you really fucking have to flip them. Like there's literally no other choice but to flip them, and that often involves in like days or weeks of wading through enormously negative community sentiment about things. And the people giving that sentiment like are completely correct about the negative response to it. Like I know like I can completely resonate with them why they feel the way about the things I've just done, but like sometimes you just have to do that stuff to like move things forward. You have to yeah.
I'm sorry, I just thought about Zetrot's exciting news. Which was for anyone out of the loop, about 10 years ago, this guy named Zetrot, who is kind of he was a pretty established community member. He had this bright idea for a spread proposal. I don't know if it was his idea, but it was one essentially where you would allow like a giant gap from like the extras all the way through, and it would also come with like the gutting of approval, something like that, or the gutting of being able to rank a single diff set like over 5 minutes or whatever. So and I don't know if he came up with it or he was just the communicator, but it was just one of those funny things that reminded me of flipping the tables, enormous community sentiment, because when you put something like that out there, sometimes somebody has to put it out there so that it can actually be taken off the table. And it's just like the people chess you were describing reminds me of like, oh, maybe he was actually set up to make that announcement so that it would fail and then we could move on to something else. So who knows?
I can see where you're coming from with that, but I think the approach was that there was generally just a faction of people that actually wanted that to happen. And they wanted that to
Yeah.
happen to the degree that it was so far removed from like what the community wanted to happen that I think it was sort of necessary for that to happen. And it kind of sucks that sort of Zetrot got kind of crucified for that when it wasn't necessarily like his idea so much for the most part. I think it was like a lock to have type thing, if I recall correctly.
So I mean I have some experience being on the rebelling side of this so in 2017 like we had I'd say the most restrictive mapping environment I'd ever experienced in OS. And you had a faction of that really wanted to support these stringent systems and perhaps even make it more stringent. Um but you knew that they were on the wrong side of public opinion. It's just that, but they've been able to kind of work in the background, especially now that at that point the QAT was no longer able to take down maps explicitly, so they were filtering they were filtering BNs out with their mapping tests, and like adding really subjective questions, things like that.
Yeah.
So part of what I did like as a BN was help some troublemakers in the mapping scene get their maps out there, which actually pushed these mappers that had really strict standards that to come forward and essentially die on those hills until they were exhausted and no longer in the way of that type of content getting through. So I kind of see what you mean on that.
Yeah, like sometimes you need the firebrands there to just kind of like do that kind of stuff. But as part of the nebulization that OS is undergoing continues, I think even in leadership, it's kind of getting to the point a little bit now where like structures are trying to make reasons for themselves to exist rather than necessarily supporting things that people are looking for. I'm gonna
That's
the half of this podcast is gonna be me saying, does that make sense? Does that make sense? But like
it makes sense.
I really feel that's where things are at right now. Like things are just trying to kind of continue and to justify their own existence necessarily than like people trying new things and seeing necessarily what sticks. And I think that's kind of really sad because we're missing out on the people that like do stuff that maybe we want to stick. But I think we've got to kind of figure out how to fold those people in more.
So, I'm curious what you think about like old ideas returning as new. And so basically, we had Mo on a few episodes ago, and we talked about his kind of involvement in the scheduled deletion of the NAT. Right? I think this happened last year, so it happened while you were out. Essentially, you had like 5 really experienced members of the like NAT staff, GMT, kind of band together and come up with this proposal to delete the NAT and replace it with essentially the MAT BAT system back in 2010. So what are your thoughts on stuff like that? Because I've seen that pattern happen quite a few times now.
Yeah, it's funny because the Mat Bat system was my baby. It's funny that people want to go back to that, but it
Your
also didn't work
grandpa.
very well. Yeah, man, there is some history there. There is some history there that involves a picture of a thong, a picture of a rock wearing a thong, which will sound absolutely bewildering to most people not familiar.
Yeah.
Wow, that takes me back. But yeah, no, I think definitely that there shouldn't be a kind of like a sneering look back at what we've done before. Like if it worked, it might be prudent to go back and try it again with what we know now. Doesn't necessarily have to be something like, oh, we've done that before, therefore we should never do it again. Um, I think that's kind of a constant sore point for the NAT in particular, actually, because like the scheduled deletion of the NAT seems to just kind of like come back now on a regular cycle. Like I think every like year or so it pops up. It popped up again recently. I don't know if that's like,
Yeah.
am I allowed to say that?
No, yes, it's just like if anyone's been listening to content like this, they would know the story at this. Like,
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, there's like another proposal that was more or less hey, let's delete the NAT and then replace it with something adjacent, and that has met the fate of the last one, which is like everyone going, oh my god, we can't delete the NAT, and then some half-baked measure of, oh, I don't know, please do evals now, smiley face, which is like the consummate NAT experience for me. Honestly, it's like the past 5 years or whatever of it has just been like, please do evals, smiley face.
The
I don't think
upheaval was
it's half
success.
baked this time. I think it'll do something different, so that'll be interesting if it actually goes anywhere.
Yeah, maybe. I hope
So
so.
the upheaval was successful in creating a recurring event for every OC cycle where the NAT tries to delete itself.
Yeah, more or less. Which was never the intent of it. The intent was kind of like, oh, everyone's bogged down in this thing that isn't working. Well, isn't working bracket for the community, because it wasn't. Like pre-upheaval, it just wasn't working. You can see it in metrics even. Like if I pull stats down, or I can't anymore because I don't have the keys. But if you pull stat down, I think I've done it before. You can literally see in like a 6-month period the ranked metrics like recovering basically to sort of the baseline levels that we expect now, almost immediately after the upheaval happened, because like shit was like terminal. I think if we hadn't have done that, I think in 6 months we probably would have had someone splinter off. Like the game probably would have like irrevocably sprinted off into like one big private server and one main game.
Osu 2.
Yeah, I
Oh,
have a feeling that
God.
would have happened. Not from anyone like up top, but I think a community person would have run with it and been like, "Okay, well, this sucks. This fucking sucks. No one likes what's happening here. I'll just write an emulator or something." They would have just forked it from there. But
I don't know.
yeah, it
My
was pretty
perspective is
bad.
that nothing's really changed, which is so it's interesting that you say that there's been a change in the player base and what the player base is doing, because
It's
like
it's, it's
I
less the
haven't
player
noticed
base.
really anything different.
The player base is fine, but it's like it's the way that it was handled. Like in the internal team level, the attitude towards it is completely different. It was very like adversarial towards the community before, like very adversarial. Like it was kind of like, oh, the mappers and the players don't know what they want, was the prevailing feeling there, I think, pre-upheaval. And now it's kind of like post-upheaval, the prevailing feeling is we should let them figure out what they want. Like it's okay for maps to kind of be not perfect or not fit into a particular mold as long as they meet like the minimum viable standards, is something that comes up a lot.
Well,
Which I
it's like before we were in, so you'd watch stuff like the East versus the West in the early times, so like 2010, 2013, it was right before my time. Then you'd watched the QAT like kind of era of quality enforcement. And a lot of that had nostalgia for those earlier styles of the OSU cycle before. Then you had the, let's break this shit down because we've now tightened the like levers so tight that we're now not letting like interesting things through, which then kind of created what I like to refer to as the rapture, where we started letting in really out there stuff, and this kind of broke everyone's idea of what quality was. And then you have like what I call now like the postmodern era of like nobody really cares, because if they do care, they're not able to actually drum up enough support with them to actually change anything and influence it. So you still have like people that like think quality matters, but they can't. None of these groups of quality czars really agree with each other, and so you never have enough to push forward compared to before, where you had kind of like everyone get on the same page. It's less like they maybe had some variations, but they were mostly aligned of like, we want more structured and rigid stuff and less of this free form like mapper breaks the rules type of thing. So
right. I think, in my view, the ideal spot there would be somewhere between postmodern and somewhere between Rapture. It's kind of like post-Rapture, I guess.
yeah, but it's like a pendulum, man. It's
Yeah,
like it's
it
just we
swings, you're
swing
right.
from left. Yeah.
And at the moment, we're kind of swinging back towards pre-upheaval values, where it's sort of kind of like people want to have a declaration of what is and what isn't quality, and kind of like measure things against that. And I think that kind of approach is sort of doomed to fail, though, because like it didn't work pre-upheaval, and I don't think it'll work post again, I think we'll just kind of end up in a situation where you get a couple of people that are like really very vocal about how they feel about maps, and they'll get into a position where they're able to, and they'll do it without a shred of malice too. They'll do it thinking that it's the completely right thing to do, that it's what everyone wants, that they'll do
Mhm.
it because they feel the response to it is that people want this declaration, and they'll go up there and they'll basically undo like 5 or 6 years worth of, I guess, to use the term that I hate to use, mapper freedoms, right?
Mhm.
You'll start having people that won't be able to make what they want to make because it runs afoul of what someone else completely separate from the process necessarily thinks is quality. And I think that is kind of like probably the most toxic approach we could have to things. Like I've always been a fan of like deregulation on that front. Like I think it should just be left up to the players to decide what they do and they don't like, and we should just have curation projects that kind of like lift up the new and the weird shit and let people like, get exposed to that and then form their own opinions of it. That's how I've always felt we should handle it. But we never get the curation stuff going. Like Spotlights is kind of an attempt at the curation, and it's sort of just, I think people mostly just farm it for the badge or the
Yeah.
achievements or something. It kind of didn't hit the mark that I thought it would hit. So I don't know. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe the other approaches are what aren't actually needed. So I don't know.
So
It's just
I have two things I want to say. So Spotlights was kind of like it in my opinion it was effective at one point, but then it's too many things got put onto it, and then it became a failure. Is kind of what ended up happening. Like I remember being on the Spotlights team in 2017. Then it's like we were moving to some seasonal format. Then that crashed and burned, and then we ended up on Locktav rebooting the thing and making it like a demonstration of like playlists. And the system that emerged after that was one where it is people like badge farming, because you now have like players and mappers like doing the selection. So pretty
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a mess. I wish we'd kind of put more thought into it,
Yeah.
just in general.
Now I have a take. I have a pretty hot take that um that I dropped in another server of people that were, mapping prolifically when I was coming up. And it's funny how loved ended up being more selective than ranked. I bet that pisses many people off. So, what do you
Probably.
think about that?
Yeah, I mean, probably. I kind of like where Loved went, sort of as it matured. I think it took on a life of its own, and it kind of went with the mandate of, oh, this is what people like actually want to see, and it's like supported by the thing that I always thought we should use, and it's kind of like how do users rate maps, right? Love just has like a more advanced user rating system, and it relies on that fully to determine what is and isn't in the category. And to me, that kind of really kind of gives the game away as to what kind of direction we should be taking in the future in general. Because I think ranked should sort of just be some kind of like composite of the mapper modder expertise complex we have now and what love is. Like I think that should just be the way things are. I think that's the optimal way forward. Things.
I have some caveats, but I think White is like jumping. He's like really wants to say something on this, so I wanna want to give him the chance to say that.
I don't know what you're getting at actually. So
Okay, well, damn, his head is empty. All right, then I'm going in. All right.
You know what I
Um,
think is actually I really enjoy getting to see love change over the years because it's never been exactly one thing. There's been a lot of very distinct changes into the entirety of like how do they select maps, how do they put them up, how do you get them through, and the way even like after it's what changed to captain's pick, how it's kind of evolved with that over time, especially like in like standard having the different themes and categories. It's just a lot of fun to engage with the maps that way. And that's the long story of how I ended up doing metadata for them for like 5 years.
yeah. So I my take on this is mappers have mapping groups have always wanted some control over curating, and we have many of them. Loved got its section, and those mappers did not. Is kind of what's been at the heart of this. Where I think in the beginning, basically in the beginning it was okay, mappers control the section with star priority, because it was like a dumping ground for star priority, and then people kind of put some people wanted it to just be a spotlight for unranked maps, like 2B or whatever, and that were good. And then some people were just but people mostly had control over putting whatever they wanted in there if they had enough resources. Changed to the voting system, and that voting system was eventually refined that really high majorities were needed to actually select maps. And because you actually drew from enough players, you were actually able to get some pre-curation that was tamper resistant to some extent, especially with those high thresholds of voting. And mappers, never really gotten something like that because to do this, I think a section is critical, but a section has not been an option. So what do you think about that, Ephemeral?
Well, making it so that ranked has sections, I guess, that people can submit their stuff to.
Yes. The common argument I've heard against it from before was complexity. It's a lot of complexity. So.
If it's that complex, really, I mean, it'd certainly be a fun thing to try. I think anything is better than the current single ingress path we have now. I think if people are able to submit things to sections and players are able to get a better idea of what they're going into if they're looking for particular types of maps. We kind of tried to do that with tagging recently, I think. So maybe it's a natural evolution from there. People can I don't know, maybe there'll be evolutions of how we treat maps based on what tags they've got, for example. That would essentially be sections.
Yeah, I think that's I bring this up because we were trying to when the tournament custom mapping stuff was starting to become a little bit bigger. We were trying to get a section for maps that were used in some of these higher tier tournaments, like the OWC maps. It's all of them. They're going through the regular ranking process, and so they're ranked maybe 2 years after the tournament. In some of the worst cases. And so people wanted to see a section where it's just all right, hey, these were in OWC, let's see the tournament map. Things like
just let them
that.
go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely think that should have been a thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but it got shot down because the complexity was apparently not worth it, and then of course, because you have all these other groups of mappers that want curation for different other things that aren't getting that, they also push back against that because the nail that stands out gets hammered down, that type of thing. So
right.
It's this cycle of you kind of now need to do everything at once, otherwise you can't. Otherwise, no one gets anything. So.
Yeah, there is a lot of that present in a lot of those stuff lately.
It reminds me.
It makes it sound pretty bad, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of how much pain it was just to get more genre. I mean, more genre categories and more language categories, and you had to there had to be so much back work just to try and prove that this deserves to exist instead of trying it and seeing if it works.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, I've been talking about this tagging system. I've been saying it's been a super viable solution for about 5 years. I'm glad that I had not left the game before it happened.
Yeah, no, the tagging stuff took way too fucking long. I think we'd had discussions about introducing a Boru style or a funny numbers site name style fucking tag system that is sort of even more than what we've got now. I think we've been talking about that kind of thing since 8 years ago or more, maybe. It came up a really long time ago in terms of map. I don't know why it's taken so long. It's hard to even point fingers or whether even pointing fingers is the right thing to do, but yeah, it's just one of those things that it just doesn't happen, and if someone doesn't think it's necessary, or they think it's low priority, or I don't know. There's so much that goes on dev side that it's hard to really quantify or figure out where they choose to spend their time on things. Like a lot of the time they spend a lot of time on stuff that is not player facing but is like absolutely mandatory for forward progress. So like sometimes you can lose the devs in a hole for like a year or 2 years as they sort of try and figure out how to get their ducks in a row to like keep going, because it's really complex what they're doing, surprisingly. Which I don't think was the intent of Laser ultimately. I think it was that Laser was meant to be kind of like be a more simple, more correct approach, but
Yeah, Laser was
it's
supposed to be like modular, and anybody can make their own game mode, and anybody can contribute. And it's a very active GitHub repository, but it's not either of those things. Like, yes, you'll get
it's
different
not very
people contributing,
accessible.
but not like in that original vision. Like, sometimes
Yeah.
I'll hear about people that tried to add something, and then they just couldn't get it. It was too difficult. Like, damn, they had to give up on trying to add storyboarding tools because it was just too convoluted.
Yeah. No, I get it. It's you have to fight the open source contribution stuff. Like you've got to go through pull requests and shit like that. You also got to learn like it's genuinely a quite complicated code base. Like I'm not a professional coder by any means. Like I'm firmly hobbyist. I've only ever learned it to do like hobby type stuff, but I consider myself like vaguely competent on that front, and even I'd struggle to like pick Laser up and do anything with it
I mean, it's a
meaningfully.
complex engine, so it's like game development is notoriously like technical. When you are messing with a custom engine, then it seems like an always online type of game that has web interaction, and quite a complicated website to boot. Like it's no joke of a coding project. And then it's like now it's supposed to be expandable, so it needs this crazy plugin system with all these crazy APIs, and like everyone wants everything exposed, and you can't do that because you also have like security. It's like it is, yeah, no, it's a massive
Yeah.
project.
It's a babushka doll of pain, especially for
Yeah.
Pepe. I think a lot of people don't really catch on to that dev side, but like he's trying desperately to make things work for as many people as humanly possible, and it's like he's pulling himself so thin to do it that I
Mhm.
think we end up with situations where a lot of really obvious stuff that needed implementation or needed time like forever ago sort of just kind of gets forgotten by the wayside, and tagging's one example of that, I think.
I think it's just like I still think it comes down to lack of willingness to democratize control, because yeah, this is too much for one person. But we are going and when you have things that are too much for one person, as I've experienced personally in the workplace, it's like it goes at the rate of what that person can do, which is when you have something this enormous means you're going pretty slow.
Well, it's more democratized than most, I think, because like if you are able to drum up someone who can like help you realize a vision for something in code on Laser, you can legitimately just like probably do most of what you want to do and then pull request it. But you then have to sit through the picking of that proposal you've made apart, and you have to have a certain degree of editorial fluency to understand the kind of approaches that he wants and whether it's congruent with his vision and congruent with what he thinks is best for us. And like it's his child, so like I can
Yeah.
understand fully why he feels that way. I don't necessarily think he's the main barrier there. I think if you can like angle what you're trying to aim for to Pepe in a way that makes sense based on like the merit of the claim, he's usually all for it. You just kind of have to like get to a level of dialogue with him where you're able to convey the merit past his initial suspicion. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Once he understands, once he's clear about what you're doing, he's usually like pretty much almost always for something. I've never encountered a situation with him where like after extended discussion, like he hasn't supported something that's just like flagrantly obviously better. But I think a lot of people kind of give up before they get there.
Yeah, they get like shot down, and it's like, well, they have no place left to continue the argument from, so then they just fuck off. So
Yeah, they just give up. I think honestly, I think the only reason I have like half the setting that I have is that I'm willing to try and reach that ground with him. Often, sometimes over the course of weeks.
yeah,
So
that's what it takes.
I don't mean to sound like it's an issue with him so much too. It's kind of like any involvement on project is gonna have like a difference in the clash of view and stuff. And it's like he's not being obstructionist. He's not being difficult. It's just conveying literacy from like if he tried to tell me like deep low level code shit, I have no fucking idea what the hell he was on about either. So like trying to explain like the need for specific mapping tooling or specific stuff to him that might sound like really low impact, but to like people with a foot in the mapping scene would understand like, oh, being able to like set tags for maps properly would like be a huge thing. It can be hard to get him to that kind of relational platform, I suppose.
Well, the the tagging for it was actually meant for users. Now actually, I have something to ask you about on the. Essentially, you talked about you don't like the term mapper freedoms, and now let me give you a case of like I want to dig into that. Because when there are actually several mappers that I've talked to that hate the idea of user tagging. And I personally think that it is because they do not like their maps being binned into categories. They don't like essentially their maps to be stereotyped
Into tags, yeah.
yes, into tags. So what are your thoughts on how much control a mapper should have over how their creation is seen when ranked?
I think that to some degree, anytime you put something out there, you're going to have people that want to neatly categorize it into boxes. I think that's sort of just human nature, for better or worse.
Mhm.
But what I think we could do there is I think that we could have probably like just a little star against the tags that the mapper agrees with personally. And then they themselves could add something like, some kind of tag to signify no interest in tags, and then they just star that tag. And then you'd see when looking through the tags of that map, little star next to some like no star tag or something, and then people go, oh, okay, the mapper doesn't want their stuff to be boxed. And then other mappers would probably be like really comfortable with like starring particular tags to have people know that, yep, this is the intended vision, this is the intended like classification, this map that I'm comfortable with. I think it's kind of like the best of both worlds. But to some degree, I don't think people who want like no classification on their maps are ever going to get that kind of thing, because it's just not really the way putting stuff out there works, unfortunately.
Yeah, I kind of I agree that there. So,
So
ugh.
a lot of OS stuff is like is trying to make these really difficult compromises, because like the actual compromises, the compromises are like no one's really happy with the result, because that's kind of how you know it's a good compromise.
That's a way to
Because
put it.
That's
if
how
one
that's
side
what
is
they say.
if one side is fucking ecstatic at a compromise, it's not a compromise, it's a concession. You just fucking like you just made one part of the equation super happy. Like obviously you don't want everything to boil down into a compromise where no one's happy. You want to try and make the most people happy as possible. But for some hard things like that, I think you kind of have to just lie on the fact that you're gonna have these really hard compromises that maybe no one is happy with. It's hard to balance that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm especially like I've just been around a lot of creatives that are kind of like they're really into map. They really just want to put their thing out there, and they know that ranked is the way to do it.
Yeah, it's
But the
visibility,
problem
right?
is ranked is an official section, and so what they don't realize is that ranked is because it's official. It is for the community's sake, and then it's done from an official direction. And yeah, it has all the exposure, but then you're subject to constraints. And actually, some like if I'm gonna the A word, that community actually was not even pushing for rank. They were like, we don't want to rank anything because of that. So that it was. Just, I'm sorry, Club Penguin. My bad. I almost slurred there.
Yeah, it would. What, Avalon?
Oh, come on. Hey, that's obscenity right there. We're gonna get canceled.
Is it?
Okay.
Is it actually?
No. Wait, do you remember? You were actually the one that suggested that got it to be a censor. Turning
Oh,
Avalon into Club Penguin. That
right.
was
Yeah,
you.
that's when it was. That was when it was mega dog shit. I don't think it's that bad now, is it?
It may not be, but I was in the era where it was mega dog shit, so it's like that forever for me.
Yeah, that's fair, I guess. I don't know. They had that really bad arc, and it was kind of like it was making support emails happen, and it's kind of like that's why we had to act on that. But probably
Yeah.
long past due to get that thing off the list, honestly. Unless they're like still super bad. But I don't know. Even then, I was kind of hesitant to like do that because there were all a bunch of people with like had really strong views about what they wanted, and it's kind of like it's difficult outside of them being like openly hostile, or some I shouldn't say them. I should say like some people in that subset being openly hostile to other people about their views. I'm kind of like reluctant to decry their views on things as being wrong because like a lot of them are clearly very passionate about the game and had very clear ideas about what they wanted to see from it. And some of
Yeah.
it I agreed with to some degree as well. It's just the initial toxicity in that bit kind of made it hard to take their points seriously a lot of the time. Didn't mean they
Well,
didn't have points though.
yeah, I agree. They had points. They had a vision. That was fine. The problem is that to get that vision across, they attacked other users and they did it off platform, so they circumvented a lot of our moderation like capacities. And then it was just now you have this blatant thing of it's being advertised on platform and leading to off platform, and now it's like the vector of abuse, and that's where like that's the only
Yeah.
time. But if it really felt like when that censor came in and they got decried from off-platform use, it felt like Al Capone getting like taken down for tax evasion, like that type of thing.
Yeah. Oh
Where it's
man.
like they'd been skirting this for years. They'd already done a lot of damage to the psyche of the community, and this is what they get pinned for. But justice was eventually. That's how I saw
Yeah.
it. It was just it would have been better if they didn't take advantage of like the algorithmic using the essentially the Twitter algorithm to spread highly emotionally engaging content with their views, and that's how they got so popular, right? So I just did not like that aspect.
No, I mean neither. I mean it was rage bait essentially.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that approach of getting Al Capone for tax evasion, honestly, like the amount of times we've had to do that over the course of OSIS history, it's like my least favorite thing in the fucking world. The amount of times I've just wanted to hit something with a sledgehammer, but they haven't fucking shown the goddamn cheek yet that lets me do it. The amount of times that's happened, it's honestly one of the most stressful things about being in a role like that because like people see it and they're like, "Oh, you have all this power to do something. Why don't you do something?" And they fail to grasp the fact that you have that power because you don't use it.
Yes.
Like if you just use it all the time, you lose the mandate for it. And like once you lose the
Mhm.
mandate, you essentially can't fucking do it anymore. So like I have to wait for people to fucking like to screw up to a point where we can do something about it sometimes, and just waiting for that to happen or like positioning things for that to happen is an extremely frustrating experience.
And you also have to balance not only what you get frustrated about, but just like thinking about what people would actually want you to do or what they would find fair too. And that can be difficult to gauge.
Yeah, like, am I right to be frustrated about this? Is it something worth waiting in the shadows to hit someone with a sledgehammer over? Like, I've there's been a lot of times where I've been up in a position like that, and I'm not been sure whether my approach is the correct one or not. And it involves a lot of networking with people and getting opinions from them in subtle ways that kind of don't hint the fact that you're about to fucking bludgeon someone to death with a rock. And I don't know. It's not fun. It's like the least fun part of any kind of, I guess, management. Is it community management? I don't know. I never went to university for community management. I kind of just sort of just did it. So I don't know. I just assume this is just part and parcel of how of handling groups of this size, I suppose.
Yeah, to be
But
honest, the average thing that you'll see a community manager do is nowhere on a similar scale or level of in-depth involvement. This kind of in-depth involvement from on all levels is really rare to the point that it's not like something you really study for online environments yet at all. Like when you
yeah,
usually see a community manager role, it's usually attached to a social media role, and all it amounts to is if
just
someone
post
says
shit
something
on Twitter.
inappropriate on your social media post, you delete it, or
You delete
you
it. Yeah,
monitor the Discord, and if they say something obviously inappropriate, you delete it. That's it. You don't like work out their personal issues, or you don't look at
yeah,
how
yeah,
to change the
exactly.
community. It just runs.
I genuinely during my my interim year, I genuinely looked at like some positions for community management and other things. I think Hoyoverse was actually hiring a senior community manager, which by their resume for I technically qualified, and I thought about it for a while, but I couldn't knit the lines in my head of like I don't know anything about the social dynamics of like Hoyoverse spaces to the point where I do with those like I just wasn't in them, right? Like they're completely foreign to me. I don't think I could in good conscience like apply for a position like that at the head
I think
expecting.
you would find more overlap than you're giving yourself credit for, but like
Yeah.
it would be different if you were just like, yeah, I'm gonna go be a community manager for like some live service like Fallout game. That's a totally different crowd than the Hoyoverse like crowd, I'd say. But yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. It's just the dynamics, the not knowing the dynamics there is like a huge thing. But yeah, I don't know how we veered onto that. Anyway,
Okay. Yeah. I was just thinking about this of like people that you'd want. Basically, the only community manager role I'd seen with more elevation than just like the social media one Nafi described was in Mabinogi, and just like I guess other Nexon games have something like this too. The community manager is a little bit more involved because like they're actually like log on to the game, like they're in some of these official, they're in the official discords, they socialize with the players. And sometimes they do elevate concerns up through the local team and get things changed. It's a bit different from like the whole triaging and press like kind of PR role that it turns into for me. So
yeah, certainly sounds it.
yeah. Are you ready to talk about Pasonia?
Oh my fucking god! All right, I didn't think that would come up, but yeah, sure, okay. Let's take a swing at that.
We were
Let's take a
talking
swing
about
at
the
this one.
sledgehammer, and I'm sorry, I just got immensely curious. So
Oh man! All right. What's the stick there? Because it's been a while and I've forgotten a lot of it.
look, I just remember that they were a key member of the East versus West stuff going on in like before time, so 2011, 2013 for me.
Right.
And so this was when I remember. I think it was like the Chinese BAT had their circle jerk. Pasonia was like the ringleader allegedly, like, and something went down and then Pasonia exited the picture. Now for players listening, most of what you'd hear about Pasonia for is their like CS6 like DTable difficulties, because like someone like Wubble Wolf would go and play them, so like things like Sakura Kagetsu and that Pulse song, things like that, those are the ones that people are familiar with. But Pasonia was actually like pretty of involved community figure, and I just want to hear Ephemeral's perspective on it.
Well, I think this kind of ties back to a sort of appraisal for a person that I mentioned earlier, and that you can have someone that is like absolutely convinced that their approach to something is the correct approach and that divergent approaches are wrong or harmful. And I think Personia was rightly or wrongly absolutely convinced that the methodologies of the group that he was in was the correct approach to things, and he was unwilling to countenance anything to the contrary. And it got to such a point that a lot of BAT time was spent uh, essentially arguing against his stances. And to be clear, he was the BAT manager while he was the BAT manager that had on my appointment, I think. I came up with Andrea and a few other people who aren't around anymore. I think it's just Andrea and I left actually.
Wow.
Two of us are like the oldest ones left.
hmm
Yeah, I think it's genuinely. I think it's genuinely just us. I don't think the lineage continues any further. Everyone else is pretty much gone.
Holy
Wow, that's
shit.
fucked. Anyway, yeah, yeah, he was obstinately convinced, and it just got to a point where like it would be me, and I was in a friend circle with Deacon and Zetra and Falcon, who was a fairly prominent BAT at the time. And a lot of it was just kind of, I think I was like fucking like 17 or something. So a lot of it was, pretty, oh my God, what the fuck is this guy doing? And we kind of evolved into essentially trying to obstruct it as much as we could, because it was not something that we felt was good for anything. It was enforcing a very rigid set of maps. Like everything everything I'm describing here is more or less, like it's kind of like, we tied back to Avalon earlier, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like it's a little bit on that front. It was to some degree, it was kind of harassment, I guess. Like, the man was out here doing his best, but we didn't think he was doing the best at all. We thought he was doing a shit job, to be honest. And a lot of that was kind of like, how much obstruction can we get away with to put the point across that this isn't the way we should be doing things. And eventually we kind of pressed stuff to the point where he quit. And when he quit, he left a huge ass vacuum. And I saw the vacuum, I guess, and I kind of like, well, I guess I'll step up and start doing stuff a little more, because I think the reason he got appointed in the first place was like, I think Ivelset, who was the first bat manager, originally wanted to step down just because he was like, he'd moved on to other things. Like it was completely like benign stepping down. He's just like, yeah, I'm gonna go do other stuff.
So
And
wait.
Pepe's like,
So I'm sorry. Just so I understand the story so far. So Pasonia was bat manager, and essentially the tensions escalated. He eventually quit over probably some drama, and you filled the void. Is that what I'm hearing so far?
yeah, more or less. But I mean, like he quit over the drama, and I'm kind of like darting around the fact that I insinuated or that I instigated a lot of the drama, because
I mean,
17-year-old me was a massive firebrand, like immensely.
I mean, I'd admitted that I'd done something similar just not even a half hour ago, so
Yeah.
you're in good hands. But
Well, the scope of which I was incendiary was I literally got bat because I got known by the community because I engaged in a giant fucking argument with like some of a modder in a very public space, and people were like, holy fuck, this guy's swinging hands. But that's how I got bat. That's what people went, oh yeah, okay, maybe he'd be an okay bat. Was they literally saw me like fucking full on, piss fart arguing with a guy on a mod thread. So
It's a
that
very
was what they.
yeah, that's a big difference between your style and like what I see as Locktav's style. Like Locktav's more of like he's playing 4D chess, and you're just like I'm throwing hands, like Rambo style. Like
A Kool-Aid man through the wall, fucking like, heated real-time arguments have always been my shtick, I think.
I see.
oh
So
right,
the muscles in your avatar are no exaggeration. You're ready.
yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of my bit. No, yeah, you're right. Loctav used to do a lot better at positioning. I learned a lot of the positioning that I used later on after he stepped down from stuff from him, actually. So I kind of took on what he did, because yeah, we were adversarial at times, Loctav and I, but like we play D&D together now, so it's like no bad blood between us anymore.
I mean, hey, if you have bad blood, you can just trip each other up in the campaign, but you know where that's going. Like that's you're going.
Yeah, it's just you can tell when someone's passionate. Anyway, that's the deal with Personia. There was I think someone had ventrilo clips of the conversation that ended up making him quitting, and I think you can hear me fucking cackling like a hyena in them. Like it's just the kind of thing it was.
It was probably uploaded to push and therefore lost to time. So all we have is your rousing account of it. So
Probably Ztron probably has it hanging around somewhere. Or Shell
oh
Ghost
man,
maybe.
oh god, yeah. Well, who knows where he's at?
Yeah, he's doing all right. I keep in touch. He's working. He's working himself out in a good way. Working himself out. That makes no sense. He's working his way up the ladder. He's doing
Okay,
good for himself. Yeah,
that's
I'm happy
great.
for him.
Yeah. It's always good to hear like when people move on from OS and then they have their lives ahead of them and they're going through, and that's always fascinating. So
Yeah. But yeah, that's the Personia thing. Long story short, it's not. It gets conflated a lot. It was just a very, I don't know, foundational drama hinge, I guess.
well, it's like after that, so you became the bat manager, and then how soon after you became the bat manager did we transition to BAT QAT?
I think it wasn't the bat manager straight away. I was just kind of like the prospective. I was like the person that was visible and Pepe saw, and so he'd like let me do stuff. And eventually, I had some some of the really old time BAT, the ones that had Pepe's ear beforehand, like Orp and Sinistro, they kind of threw their weight behind some of my ideas. And they would engage with me about the idea of an intermediary team between the BAT and the community and BAT, and that would become the MAT. And they put me in charge of that. That was my initial rendition. That was my kind of like first thing that they let me really do, and
Oh,
it
so
didn't go very well.
so to put time on that before you go into what happened with Matt Bat, that means that this is probably even earlier, like 2011, 2012, rather than what I was thinking, which was like closer to 2013. Because you mentioned Sinistro, and that's a name, like I think most of his ranked maps are in the 2008, 2009 sort of. So
Yeah, he was kind of on his way out when I was in, but he was he
yeah.
was a major fixture for me, that kind of like a kind of grounding rod, I guess. He was a lot older and a lot more mature in many ways, and despite his age, like I don't know, he helped ground me a lot. He turned me. I think a lot of what I express in terms of like modern leadership kind of like comes from sort of advice he gave me.
Wow.
There's a lot more measured in his approach. He's kind of like, yeah, use the sledgehammer when you got to use the sledgehammer, but like chill out otherwise. And yeah, anyway, those two threw their weight behind the idea of an intermediary team, and then we kind of started with the MAT, and lots and lots of teething pains with that and figuring out where it sat in the system. And it was kind of like the prototypical thing that I think Loctav later developed into what we now know as the BN, and then the QAT sort of came after that, if my timelines are right. They might not be. This is all
That
very old in my head.
this is all sounding roughly about right. At least it lines up with what I've read. So
Yeah. That has kind of been my purpose in OS for a very long time, is kind of starting things off and then like making sure they're in a space for someone else to take over and run
yeah.
properly and maintain. I kind of just I kick stuff off, and then it kind of like gets handed off to someone else once it's in the operational phase, and they make all the adjustments for like longevity and stuff. Like featured artist is a great example of that, I think.
Oh man, that started out really rough, but it evolved into something absolutely beautiful. Holy crap.
Yeah, oh man, the early outreach for that was so hard. Like just building the trust, because people, we didn't have a great rep at all,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of the early reach outs didn't end very well. Like they're very demoralizing. It was kind of like, is this ever going to take off? you know. Anyway, that's probably a different topic, but yeah.
Yeah, so then I guess fill in the gap for me here. What there was your predecessor, I think, what at least in terms of community manager, was a guy named Dereku. He had the cool dude user title. Can you tell us about like what you saw of what he was doing, I guess, back then?
I don't have a very fond view of him, because he kind of just appeared and like sat on the roll.
Oh.
Peppy sort of just did a thing, and he just handed it out, and he just
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah,
I
all right.
I I don't
That
know.
tells me that.
He just did a thing and was like, okay, and then we kind of just put up with it until it came to light that he wasn't really doing very much, and then the eye of Mordor moves on to someone else.
All right.
Lord.
Great. That's that fills that gap. It's like, wow, he was not actually important. He held the title first, but that he was not important.
He might be. I just don't remember anything he did.
Oh well, then he wasn't important. Because if you don't remember, then probably no one else does. Because we're still like 15 years in the past, like historically.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm just being mean, but I just don't remember what he did. Maybe he
Okay.
did stuff. Maybe he didn't. I think he did a lot of like forum help. I think that's why he had Peppy's attention. He used to like be in the help forum stuff and helping people out with issues. And Peppy's like, oh yeah, that's probably a good candidate for someone that does something. And I'm just kind of like, okay,
Oh, so like
yeah.
that's something like there's one person that stood out to me that did that. I think he actually went by the name of Death. And I think he
Yeah,
even might
Def.
still be around. Like,
Death is
Yeah,
right.
he's around. He's around. Def's still
yeah,
around. Yeah, he's great. Love
yeah,
Def.
I
Def's
remember that.
fantastic.
Yeah, he always helps people. Pretty cool.
He's
He
like
was
perfectly
always like, the
content.
best.
Yeah, he's perfectly content just to help people.
Perfect. That's
I would always end up reaching out to him for the most random of things when I was starting out, and he was always really helpful. So, thumbs up.
Thumbs up. We love you, Death.
People like that are so fucking rare. It's unreal.
Mhm.
Yeah. And he's still around, which is crazy because like I joined the game and he was there, and now it's like we're 11 years out and he's still here.
Yeah, it's nuts. Can't take people
Okay.
like that for granted either. But yeah.
Yeah. So I haven't now. Let's start to get a little closer to the modern era, just by a couple of years here. What are your thoughts on if I mention the phrase "this song is about a tragic love"? What comes to mind?
What does come to mind?
Good.
I'm genuinely stumped. I'm not frantically googling this.
Half
I'll
slash
I'll I'll,
trying to
I'll
talk
help.
in riddles.
I'll help you out. So I'm referring to something that I see that was kind of like my first pivotal event, I guess, in OS that I witnessed community wise, which was the drama surrounding asymmetry, which was this map set by Gaia that had a Captain 1 difficulty as the top set, and
Oh no, is it the apple bitch?
Yes, yes,
Oh my god.
and so the reason why I remember this so distinctly is because this was the map set that caused the change in the status quo where the QAT was no longer allowed to stop maps from getting ranked due to perceived subjective quality concerns.
Boy, does that sound familiar.
Yeah, but this was like the first one where Peppy was just like, no, like Loctav is he called Loctav some names or something, and they're just like, you can't do this shit.
Yeah, that happened a lot. They did not have a very placid relationship. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's a prime example of like losing mandate. I guess it's just like asserting authority over stuff that no one really agrees with is the fastest way to lose the ability to assert authority. But at the same time, like I talked earlier about, sometimes you have to fucking break shit. You have like horrendously bad community sentiment for a little bit. Sometimes you just got to do it. Like maybe he just felt it was one of those instances where it's like kind of like, I have to take a stand against the stupid ringlet lady with the apple, or like otherwise every BG on the planet's not gonna have anything to do with the song. But I guess the time just wasn't right for it, or the angle wasn't great, or something like that.
Yeah, but here's the worst part. It's like it might have started over BG, and then it's just like it's kind of like when people look at something and they look at something long enough that they get pissed at it and start critiquing it, sometimes unfairly. And I think that's what happened. Like, I don't think initially any of the QAT involved with that map cared at all about the map, but then they were like, "Oh my god, I hate this. This is just freeform jumps. Like, there's nothing. It's just like high distance snap. What the fuck are we doing?" And then it turned into that, and wow, it spiraled.
Yeah, a lot of things in OSA like that. They spiral off like seemingly innocuous events.
Yeah.
Quite funny.
Uh,
I don't.
what are your thoughts on one of my favorite mappers, Hollow Wings?
I honestly don't actually know very much of his stuff. If is that like anathema to say? Am I out of touch? I've heard of him. I've 100% heard of him, and I know his stuff is like good. But like my tier of player is not very high, so I haven't been able to like meaningfully engage with a lot of his work. I think.
So just correction, Hollow Wings is a she. And
pardon.
the yeah, it's okay. And so her maps were known like mainly she was pushing the boundaries of like both design and difficulty like simultaneously. So you'd have maps like Genryu Kaiko, which enraged a lot of the like old guard in terms of mapping quality. Loctav, I think, famously said something like, "This is just some e-guitar like hi-hat song. It doesn't need this like 7-star space stream, whatever, blah blah blah." And there were lots of maps like that, and they caused a lot of, I guess, disruption, especially in 2015. So, just curious if you'd heard of her maps or any of things she was involved with. So
it's coming back. Actually, I think they had a bit of a hell feud, didn't they? The two of them.
Oh yeah, like this was it almost felt like this was like symptomatic of the Chinese mapping community from like the Pasonia era, because I think a lot of those like those members stuck around, and so I think Hollow Wings was probably one of the newer members of the community when that was happening. And then so like by the time it was time for her to like start ranking maps, like she carried a lot of the mindset from back then, because back then it's like I don't think her stuff would have just gotten ranked, no questions asked. And then fast forward even 2 years, it's like immense opposition because it's all of a sudden like the entire hierarchy had flipped. So
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that kind of thing happened a lot, actually. I think she's just one salient example of it being especially prominent, I suppose. Um, I'll have to look at her stuff. I've always been of the opinion that, like, I don't think it's really the NAT or the QAT's place to really do much other than just kind of like assert a minimum standard. But I guess the crux there is that, like, people have different expectations about what the minimum like standard for something is. So
yeah,
I guess Lockdown didn't think the e-guitar hi-hat stuff was at the minimum standard, and then the rest of her circle thought, yeah, well, what's wrong with this? It's like expressive in a way that makes sense to me. Why is it bad? Like,
yeah.
yeah,
I personally, like, when I look at this, I find some parallels to stuff we see now. So nowadays I call this spacing allergy. It basically so a lot of mappers I find are kind of like in the like mid tier when it comes to skill. So when they play like streams that are too long and too spaced at the same time, they get immediately shut down. Same thing of like when the jumps are too big, they get immediately shut down. Gives them negative experience. And then now they're also trained to like create patterns around objects that generally rely on the spacing being low so you can see the whole pattern at once. So when you start to see these higher level mechanics come into maps, there's like a visceral reaction coming up from mappers. And I think back then you saw this a lot more because it was the community as a whole, like there were not many players that were able to play these high spacing maps that that Hollow Wings was now putting out. So yeah, do you have any thoughts on that, I guess? Like
on like Vanguard mappers doing stuff that no one's ever done before, and like players being like,
particularly in the mechanics, like high spacing in maps.
I don't have any particularly strong single opinions on it other than, the whole, I think that, people should be allowed to like fuck around with that kind of stuff, like I think it should be posed as a challenge for people to interact with and, see what they can make out of it, and from a player and mapper perspective. I don't think we should necessarily take stuff off the table unless it's like super fucking obtuse, like to the point where it's just a flat out degradation of the playing experience for people.
So no Spelunker, right?
I remember Spelunker being a thing, but I don't remember. It was just like, it was a circle map, right?
It was a
Yeah,
very
you went in a
weird
circle.
focus map because
Yeah,
The
it
circle.
was like AR0, and it went in a circle, and yeah.
it kept going
Yeah, it
in a
was like that
perfect
was
circle, so you really had to understand the rhythm of the song to play it because there was no visual indicators or anything really.
You have to memorize every object. Like
in hindsight, I think it was like, I think the idea that he was going for was like there, but it wasn't developed necessarily enough to be kind of like digestible.
And I
Like
guess
it was. Yeah, go on.
when stuff like that happens and you're like, it needs to be developed more, it's sometimes it's like the question of like, what direction could it go in and still be the same
It'd
map?
still be the same, yeah. I think I was supportive at the time of Spelunker being kind of like not in the thing, but I think in hindsight I probably would have just let it fare how it fared and see what people made of it in the user rating, I guess. And
Well, isn't it ranked now?
probably
Yes.
ranked
it
now. I think it
did, yes.
It
It
had
did
to go
eventually get
through
ranked.
like 7,000 mediations first.
and it still has its central gimmick, right? Like it's still mostly
Yep.
the same thing.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think that's good. I think that's the system working as intended then. But I mean, at the same time, like if it went through like 7 mediations, it's kind of like, are most mappers going to be that dedicated to getting it through after that many. Like at some point, the system friction becomes an obstacle there, and it's kind of like it makes you ask questions: should it have gone through mediation 7 times, or like 2 or 3 times, or whatever the actual amount is?
Well, yeah, in practice, it's actually how long will mappers keep this from going forward? Because, the inevitable path of progress is forward, and so if you stand in the way, you're just delaying the inevitable. Philosophical
Yeah,
question.
yeah, pretty much. I wish more people kind of understood that outlook was a thing. Like I think the direction of stuff would be a lot different if people just understood that stuff invariably changes, and it's kind of our duty to kind of like ride the tides rather than dictate where the tides go.
You just have to stick around for 3 OSU cycles, and then it's like, all right, you're good. You've seen this happen enough times where it's just like, all right, there's where your energy
Yeah.
should go.
Then you're like, Mason, I see the patterns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I remember at one point you were trying to get back into mapping around
God.
when I was actually in mentorship. Um,
Yeah.
can you talk to that experience?
Well, put simply, I've never been very good at mapping. I like looking at it and I like analyzing it, and I found kindred in a lot of other people who are like vastly better mappers that are the same. Like I kind of hit off a thing with like Charles. I was like really close with Charles for a while, like
Oh
doing
yeah.
mapping analysis and stuff. And God bless Charles, he introduced me to Undertale actually, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Um, Yeah, I used to hang around a crowd like that, and unfortunately, all of their mapping gusto never really rubbed off on me. So I, I just, I just accept that it's just not something I'm particularly good at. I like doing stupid things like the propane nightmares map I have, or like the background spins and stuff. That was like my dumb idea. I was like suggested to Lado. I'm just like, hey, can you cut this background up and make it spin? And he's like, what? Like, how the fuck did you think of that? I'm like, I don't know. I just want to be cool if they're like spun. And he's like, okay. And then he comes back with this scuffed ass thing, and I'm like, this is fucking great. Let's use this. But yeah, my actual map for that is like not very good at all. I think most people only pay the insanes for it. But
I
yeah,
on My thing with that with Propane Nightmares is I like the original and I like the Cell Builder remixes more, so I just play those. But so it's just a song thing.
yeah. I'm more of a fan of the original now. I don't like the VIP remix very much anymore as time's gone on. I don't know. Maybe I
Yeah.
ever listened to it. But yeah, the original's a lot better than that. Yeah, I think my last foray into mapping was like I think it was an FA track. I think I tried to do some silly 2B thing for Mechanical Heartbeat from Culprit because I really fucking love that song. Actually, that song was the reason why I tried to get Culprit as a featured artist. But
Yeah, that was the one I was thinking of when I was like, you were trying to get back into mapping. That was one I remember you actually posted feedback for in in like the general chat of mentorship or something. So
a long time ago, yeah.
yeah,
I
I
had
mostly
ideas
remember
for it.
that because of the people. Because like I was giving some feedback, and then I was actually counter feedbacked by people that I didn't like. And yeah, so that's what I remember.
Let me just open the damn thing. It's
It was so
so
funny because I just remember the incident of people where like everyone was like, "Oh my god, this powerful guy is asking for mapping advice. Let me see if I can curry favor with him." And it felt like people were trying to take advantage of that instead of actually trying to help you.
Oh,
Um,
dude, yeah, no, they do that. That's a huge reason why I can't really like integrate into normal spaces a lot anymore. It's like I know that took like a really depressing turn, but after a
I was
certain
going
point,
there anyway. Don't worry.
you kind of like yeah, I kind of start to get suspicious that it's like transactional, someone's interest in like the stuff that I get, and like it's built up a lot of distrust over the years, so I don't really feel comfortable like putting stuff out in an artistic setting in OS anymore because I'm just worried that people would judge it as like Ephemeral the community manager or Ephemeral the dog shit slop tier bad apple mapper rather than what my work actually like wants to come across as. And that's kind of why I've been so supportive of the whole pseudonym thing, because I think if pseudonyms existed as a coded system, I'd probably like actually start making things for us again. Probably
Oh,
not
that
very
would
good
be sick.
things,
Yeah.
but it'd be nice to have like a second alias and just fucking you know um go out and back into the scene and try and figure out how to do stuff again. It's kind of why I was so supportive of the Everly Sawamura project. The whole I
Oh
think
yeah.
that was a that was a thing for a while.
Yeah, Pishy didn't. That was an amazing video and reveal with the Pishy by Pishy. It's like the reveal at COE of like what went on for that. That was wild. Like
He
holy
mentioned
crap.
that in a channel once, and I told you I was the person that suggested to him. I think I'm like, why don't we just recycle an old multi account and see how you go? That was like officially sanctioned multi accounting because I wanted to live vicariously through the man. Who better than Pishy Fat, right?
Oh yeah, I agree. Holy shit.
It was an interesting project.
Yeah. So I
I
hate to
think
go
that I
even
think
more.
that project would go terribly nowadays because nobody cares anymore.
Yeah, no one cares.
I think Tadame kind of ruined that for everyone.
Well, before Tadame, there was Fanzen. Oh my god, Fanzen's many multi accounts of trying to submit through because they got locked out of their original account for many years. Like, holy crap.
They have that back now, right? I'm pretty sure they do.
Yes, they do. They got it back after like I don't know, probably 3 or 4 years of being locked out.
Okay, good, because I remember liking their work actually. I was fond of fans and stuff.
Yeah, I started to look back more at Fonzens since I started playing the game that they were inspired by. They were inspired by this rhythm game called U-Beat, and started playing U-Beat, and so then I'm like, oh my god, now I actually get all your weird, wacky references because you're just referencing this game. Like,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah, that shit's cool when that happens when it like clicks and you're like, oh, that's what they're doing.
yeah.
That part of mapping I've always really enjoyed, but I can't do that anymore. Like I just look at modern maps and they all look like fucking like shitty as Sotarks maps to me for the most part. And I don't enjoy playing them very much either. Like I just always go back to the older stuff. I go back to the old weird shit like Ztro maps and stuff like that and fucking I don't know. I just don't really engage with the new stuff anymore. Don't know
There's
if that's a pro.
there's a lot of variety in the new stuff, but yeah, for the most part, like the average is kind of sludge, right? So.
It's not like even bad sludge. It's just kind of like it's not. It just doesn't spark joy as much as I hate to use that phrase. It's kind of just rote or something. I don't know. It's hard to form opinions on it.
One of the other hosts has an amazing word for this, and it is nothing burger. Right? These are nothing burgers. Lots of nothing
Yeah,
burger maps.
yeah. They're just kind of like there.
Hmm.
But then, like I'll play every now and then, and like I'll pick one random map, and it'll be Blue Archive fucking OST because it's always Blue Archive OST these days. And it'll be like some mapper I've never heard of, and it's like generic in a nice way. That makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
I think I favorited one that I enjoyed a lot. It's kind of like it's not anything like super special, but I just like had fun playing it. And I'm like, oh, I actually enjoyed that. I thought that's unusual.
Yeah, it happens. I think so this is like a mechanic. This goes back to something I said earlier of how mappers these days are very pattern fixated. I think the map that there's a bias for a lot of mappers to overuse the crap out of sliders, and then they put circles in like very few parts of the song, and this makes everything much higher contrast than the songs usually support, and then it's also just boring. So because like you're playing as a player, you're going through like probably 80% of the map falling asleep, and then you have to pay attention for like a couple seconds, and that's that. And the fact that these are also algorithmically rewarded by PP is not great. So
Yeah, PB sucks. I
yep.
don't like PB at all. Like I
Yeah,
know
but
loads of people work really hard to try and make it work good, but I just think it's been a net negative overall.
yeah, I think for me, the fact that they haven't been able to get it close to what other rhythm games with skill rating is kind of a failure. Because there's so many aspects in OS that are not algorithmically solvable, or at least have not been solved to date. And I think
Math
that's really
wise,
holding it back.
the math for that kind of stuff is stupid complex. It's like
Yes.
dissertation level stuff. Like I have some of like the most talented, smart people working on stuff, and like like I've met Tom in person, and he works for like a massive corp and earns more money than God. Like that level of math.
Yes.
Like
NVIDIA.
he's like super fucking talented, like working like on cutting edge AI stuff, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Like not generation stuff, like actual like bleeding edge shit. And that's the kind of math you have to do to fucking
Yeah.
be on the tier of people working on PP algorithms, and it's kind of like it's insane to me.
Yeah, and to think that's just for the simple cases. Usually it's just like basic spacing complexity, basic rhythm complexity. It's like stuff that it has no we haven't even approached like pattern complexity and like what that does because as you can we've seen many instances where they like change something for pattern complexity and then it just completely distorts the algorithm because it's just like they looked at it in one case and they did not look at it in the other 70 cases basically. So,
Yeah, and there's like 250,000 ranked beat maps or something insane like that. It's kind of like there's no way you're gonna write an algorithm that doesn't kind of edge case some ridiculous bullshit in any one of those. Like statistically, it's just kind of not possible to not have that happen at this point. And
yeah,
then there's the I don't think people really get either. Like the infrastructure required for PP is enormous. It is like I think it's like one of the real big consumers of Pepe's time is like every time they want to do a PP deployment, it's like a fucking week and a half long infrastructure process
yep.
that takes him away from other tasks. And like it's not even just he doesn't have the workload for it. It's just it's this that complicated. And there's that many entries and that many players that it just takes that long.
Yep.
So
Big data problems.
yeah, huge. I honestly think we'd be better off just kind of. Sometimes I wish we'd just go back to ranked score or some like really simplistic variation of that, and just let people decide for themselves how much a score is worth.
I like stuff like PPV1, but it has many, many obvious pitfalls. But
Yeah,
I've always that's just my play style. So
yeah, they've all got issues. Yeah, like 'cause there's no one thing suits all for this, unfortunately. Kind of just
Mhm.
something we have to put up with.
Yep. But yeah, I wanted to actually dig into more of like your experience like as a user because you mentioned how it's like on your kind of your climb your ascent to some of these like larger positions you had like this group that you'd kind of been playing mostly with like you mentioned Sinistro, you mentioned Charles and like Ztra, etc etc. um and you mentioned that there was a point where you did not you basically lost trust and realized you couldn't do that anymore. Um I think I had the luxury of actually being around what I think was one of those points. There was a Discord server with a mapper named Mir. Am I spot on that or do you want to talk about this? Is it prodding too deep? Like
Is what running too deep? Like where the
talking
lost trust
about
with
Mir's Discord server.
what happened in
This
Mir's
was in
Discord server?
2018.
I hardly remember what happened. I've completely forgotten.
Okay, so so we basically you were in mentorship and involved, and it looked like you'd had kind of had a rekindling of like, oh hey, these users seem kind of cool. And so you basically Mir was very popular mapper, very well known name. We love Mir here. Had a Discord server and was kind of like an anchor point of where the mapping community was at the time, and had
Right.
kind of had a private Discord. And so the private Discord included like a lot of mappers that were active in the scene and up and coming. And you also joined eventually. Um, then things started to get complicated when we had mappers like UC under Capulet involved there. And I think in particular it was screenshots from this Discord that Under Capulet had used in trying to defend against some commission rule circumvention.
Oh
So
god. Okay.
now, so I'm just that's the backdrop.
Right. Yeah, I guess if it's anything involving commissions, I think my stance on it is pretty clear.
Yeah.
But
I'm just wondering if this was like one of your like events of I can't trust interacting with users like this anymore, or not.
yeah, more or less. If it involves screenshots, if screenshots of like stuff I say gets, I mean, I talk in public spaces or even most private spaces, assuming anything I say is going to get um shared in public because it's just kind of like it's just good methodology when you're in a position like this, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll say
Uh,
that I think that the situation that Hafs is referring to is, yeah, UC had been commissioned a map, um, and then you had given them permission because this was like right around when that the rule was being implemented against commissions. And so you had given permission because it was like right on that edge, and so you're like, you know
oh
what,
right,
let's just
grandfather. Yeah.
grandfather it in, right?
Yes.
But then
Grandfather.
it took like, 9 months or something like that for it to actually get ranked. And then UC used that screenshot as justification for why it was okay. But like realistically, in fairness to you, you didn't
9
think
months
that it
has
was going to
passed.
take you
Yeah.
9 months to get it ranked, right? You thought it would be able to get in, very
Like
early
that
on and
week.
kind of get forgot about, right? Get like immediately
Yeah,
forgot about.
exactly.
And so that was,
Yeah.
I think that was the issue, was UC felt that there was no timeline on that permission, and you did, and so there was, I think, that disconnect.
I think it sounds flagrantly obvious to me that I intended a timeline there, but I suppose I didn't outright say one, but you'd kind of assume that like 9 months after a rule comes in, or like any kind of month after a rule comes in, that you'd be like, okay, well maybe I've kind of missed the window on this a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Part of this is just a function of what the most common, what people in the OS community are generally like, right? Like a lot of us need things very literal, otherwise things like that happen. I feel like that can explain, I don't know, probably 90% of interpersonal conflict in this community.
Yeah, probably people not reading between the lines, I guess.
Yeah. So, but again, I'm just like really curious. It's like, was that one of those triggering incidences where you're just like, I'm never talking to users this closely ever again, sort of thing.
Well, to some degree, probably. Yeah, I mean, there's only so many
Okay.
times you can get bitten like that. I think one big incident. I can't remember how recent. I think the cherry stuff actually like fucked with me really bad.
Oh
Well,
God.
the cherry
I
stuff was
was
also related to Avalon.
yeah, it was. I remember that now.
Yeah.
But yeah,
God.
that whole debacle, like I kind of started to edge my way out the door after that, as I'm kind of like, okay, maybe I shouldn't be here anymore.
Oh, this was when Cherry was like essentially hitting the nomination cap, or when the nomination cap had to come into play, right?
Yeah, she
And
she
then
was hitting
dealing
it,
with those support emails. Holy shit.
and I don't know, she was being spoken to, but she just was ignoring it, and there was no people in the NAT willing to pull the trigger because like, well, I mean, everything that happened after that kind of explained why they didn't want to pull the trigger, but I kind of felt like obligated to do it on their behalf, I guess. So I did, and well, all that happened as a result, and I'm just kind of sitting there watching it spiral madly out of control. I'm like, okay, well, didn't really want that to happen, but what can you fucking do when people do things like that? I guess.
Yeah, fair
That
enough.
kind of took a grim ass turn, didn't it? Holy shit!
we're nearing kind of the end, but I was just really I was curious because it's just like it's we brushed across in a couple instances, and I'm just like, I wonder what Ephemeral's thoughts on this stuff really are. So
Yeah, I just wish it could have gone like any other way. I mean, I had to do something because the NAT were getting like the NAT were like it had to happen at some point or another because it was just there was almost universal agreement that something had to happen. So I kind of just took the plunge for them, and that's sort of my role there to do that for them. So, I sometimes I say like I'll be the shield for you in these matters when things like this come up because I'm willing to put up with it and sit through it. But yeah, that sort of colored a lot of my interaction with the game after that point. I think people astute enough to watch, if there is any of them. I don't know why someone would do that, but they probably noticed my activity started to drop off pretty hard after that happened because I was kind of like, yeah, I don't really want to do that anymore.
yeah, I mean, there's not too many people watching that close, but hard to get stuff like that past me.
Yeah.
There was a
Oh,
question, but your
Mm.
general, like, if your stance on commissions has changed since
No,
back
not
then.
even slightly. If anything, it's gotten stronger. I've always been. All right, I'll give some context on this because it's a bit of a controversial opinion, but like, I pirate almost all of my media. I don't spend money on it. Period. Like, I just pirate it. Very rarely do I spend money on something. So the act of like, if I'm experiencing something that someone has made, and like, there's a lot of opinions on piracy in general and all that, but like, I make stuff myself, and when I share it with other people, I don't expect payment for it. I feel like the act of payment for something kind of diminishes its creative capacity, and I feel like the best stuff is made when money isn't a concern. But I'm also aware of the fact that money is a very real consideration for a lot of people, and that it is the thing that enables them to produce the creation in the first place. But I'd still, in an idealistic world, I'd prefer that it had no influence on things. And I think in a space like OS especially, where things of opportunity like BM positions and stuff that are handed out, that kind of stuff only exists because we have a sort of confidence in people to not exploit that for financial gain. And a lot of that is especially important to me because I think the only reason I got involved in OS in the first place was because I'm like, oh, it's a free exchange of ideas, right? Like, there's no barrier. I don't have to pay to get someone to look at my work. Someone will just look at it, they'll mod it, even if they won't do it for very long. It's all free, right? Like the whole thing is free, and that was what attracted me to it in the first place. So my views on that have stayed pretty much the same. I think that if you're anywhere near BN stuff, like obviously the rules there are that you don't touch commissions in general. But I think it's for the better if people don't take mapping commissions. I think it invariably leads to a reduction in their capacity as a creative, just because you're spending it on someone else rather than your own stuff. And it's not like you can't learn things from doing commissions for other people, or you can't broaden your horizons. But I think it's ultimately I'd want to see stuff from people that they want to make, not necessarily stuff they make because they've been paid to make it.
I mean, you see it in people like Sotarks, where a lot of their maps are commissions, even nowadays, and a lot of their
Yeah.
maps are really unremarkable, and they don't really necessarily contribute anything besides more songs to the game, which is contributing something, depending on who you ask. But then
I
there's
don't really
also
know
like,
if
is that contributing something new,
yeah.
ideas or anything like that? Which I would say that they're probably not.
When I look at someone's like maps that's obviously commissioned, I don't know whether I'm looking at what the commissioner wants or whether I'm looking at what the mapper wants. And I hate that ambiguity. I want to know that I'm looking at what they want it to make. And you can kind of see that to some degree in people who kind of like just do guest diffs. Like it's not just a commission thing. Like sometimes you'll see people that kind of like, they get guilted, or they feel like they want to help out their friends and they do guest diffs. And you can kind of just tell that they're a bit flat. And like, they kind of just say, oh crap, they're bugging me about this guest diff, I gotta do it. It's not as common as a commission alternative, and it's a bit of a different thing entirely. But I think that the kind of the intrusion of obligation into creativity is the main thing that I have problem with.
I might go a little step further. I believe that most of the people that are trying to make money off of like their OSU map are generally doing so because their style is unremarkable yet enjoyable enough that it attracts a following where they know that the demand is already there, if that makes sense. So it's like, I would say that a lot of the case is, so not sometimes you could sometimes the artists, you can make the argument of they're making something so good and so appealing that everyone would want to pay for it. And sometimes you can make the argument of it's unremarkable but good enough, so they want to so the artist wants to make money off of it. But yeah, combined it gets really murky when money's in the picture. Like right now, Osu's any corruption in Osu you can basically chalk up to, all right, this other BN, this other person that has spent a lot of effort like modding and doing and maintaining activity and pushing maps through, wants their crappy map ranked by someone else. Like that's as far as the corruption really goes. But when money's in the picture, you could have, wow, Joe Schmo paid $10,000 to this BN, and now can rank something that looks like a first map. Like, so you run into different edge cases. So,
Yeah. I think someone in chat brought up Handsome. Like Handsome's a good example, I think, of what happens when you do commissions, because
God,
kind of just stop looking at Handsome stuff. But I'm like kind of biased because I don't like commissions very much. But
No,
And I
I
found out
agree.
I see a lot of his early stuff had like so much fucking soul. Like I really, really liked. He was like up there on one of my favorites. Like easy. I used to whelp on his maps all the time just for fun. But then he went down the commissions hole, and I don't know. I haven't really engaged with any of his work since. I think it's really, really disappointing that that it's ended up that way.
Hmm.
But I also can't say whether that would like is that even a product of the fact that he's taking commissions, or is his style just changed and I just don't like it anymore? It's really hard to say whether it's like explicitly related to that one thing or not.
Kind of both. Let me offer some insight of mine. So I've seen Handsome go through a lot of phases. I saw when he had just been getting into mapping and he was just making anime. I saw when he was making some really creative stuff. He was like Hollowings kind of inspired. And then I saw when he went through the concept mapping phase and debacle in 2017. And then I saw him after he came back from his military service, and started basically just doing commissions. So, his essentially he started off trying to make unique and interesting stuff. Or no, he started off making the boring stuff, got comfortable with that, started making the unique stuff, got bored of that, or realized that he wanted to start making conceptual maps, I guess, or elimination style maps, where it's like, I'm gonna make a map with only sliders that go up, and then they're gonna go down for a section, and then they're gonna go up again. Like things like that, which are just like kind of what Hollow Wings appeared to be doing, but Hollow Wings did it more of a restrictions breed creativity as opposed to eliminating entire concepts from the map. But anyways, that took off a ton, and he kind of got locked into this. I'm gonna make like concept maps, sort of a thing, and the commission stuff was brought of essentially what the concepts do is they offer a creative prompt. They're like, here's the prompt, go make something. And commissions also offer a prompt, except you're also being paid for it. So I wouldn't be surprised if in his mind he equated these two and was just like, I'm gonna make commissions because they fit with how I've been making maps and ostensibly enjoyed making them in the past. So I don't know what you think about that though. So
Yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of it is kind of founded on some previous experiences I've had. Like I've done um like creative, or I play a lot of like MUDs, like text-based games, and for a while I was heavily
Mhm.
involved in one at a volunteer level, and it's a commercial MUD. So like it's one people pay to play basically, and they pay a lot to play it. And I was in a GM role there as kind of like a volunteer type thing, and a lot of it involved writing like items that would get sold to people, and like I was writing stuff for monthly promotionals that were getting sold for like 20, 25, $30,000, and it felt really gross. Like I wasn't seeing any of it, but that wasn't why it felt gross. It just kind of felt gross that something I did for free for fun was being used to make money. I didn't really like that very much, and
yeah,
that's kind of influenced a lot of my opinions and thoughts on commissions in general. Like that distaste I feel is like it's visceral. It's not disgust. It's like uncertainty. Like it's like hand wringing. Like it's like anxiety almost. It's kind of like I don't know. I feel like it'd be better if it just wasn't there.
What
I don't
yeah,
like having to.
it's
Yeah, go on.
similar
go.
to the idea of like commissions. What's your thoughts on like BNs and other people in those kinds of positions of power using that role to push their own work, um, like
Um,
bubble for bubble type things.
I think people rightfully look at that and think, yeah, that's kind of gross, but like it is at the same time kind of a perk for what is essentially the busy work I guess they do, like the fact that they're providing a service to the greater community, and the kind of like there's sort of a blind eye allowance to that. Well, not really a blind eye because we know what happens, but there's kind of like an allowance to, okay, yeah, well, we know you're putting all this time into pushing everyone else's work, then it's only fair that you get to spend some of that time pushing your work too. But we kind of want the calculus to be, I say I kind of want the calculus to be more that you're contributing more than you're getting from it.
Why do you see it differently to being commissioned to create it?
Well,
in
because
the
like
first
the
place.
exchange of money is the main thing. I know it's like money's just a crystallization of time, right? Like that's the sole purpose of it. It's like, money represents I've spent X amount of time producing this money. That's what makes it valuable because we only have so much time. And therefore, because we can only make so much money. Um, I don't know. There's something about the character of it that just changes that for me, like significant, especially when it's involved in the creative process. Like I feel like it devalues it. It turns it into something that I think is best left out of the process entirely. I feel like it corrupts in a subtle way. It changes intent in a way that can't really be measured. It's my partner does a lot of like art commissions for stuff, and like she likes drawing them and shit, but like when I look at the work she does for her clients and the work she does for herself, there's just a certain spark in it that comes from the work she has for herself. It's not like the spark's not there. It's just it manifests differently. It's kind of like differently colored, I guess. I don't know. It's a very nebulous concept. I've written about it before and in a gist that I've long since forgotten about, but it's just a very personal thing for me that I can't really fully explain. And it's why I've tried to be careful with the messaging surrounding the commissioning stuff, because I'm very clearly like influenced by this, right? Like I'm biased towards my own point of view here, and I have a very strong, not necessarily commonly held viewpoint on it. So I kind of just delegate it off to a more like muted or a more neutral means in my eyes than what I could do.
I mean, I can also understand this as you're looking you appreciate you most appreciate it when art is like art is like the purely due to one like the creator's like experience, and then something like money essentially injects someone else's idea into the process, therefore diluting that that experience, right? And one like you can look at it from the perspective of, oh, okay, that is still the creator's experience because they are experiencing this idea, but that's not really like it doesn't come from the source of like free flowing thoughts. It comes from another human exerting agency to provide this thought. Now, I think that you can end up in cases where like maybe this is just maybe those thoughts already existed, and in that case you don't have that issue of dilution. But if it's just something that was not being thought of, and even like at a minute level, just slightly dissimilar to a different thought, then you can run into the issues that you're talking about. That's what I think.
Yeah, I think you're pretty close there. Like, I don't necessarily have an issue with like collaborative work in general because I think that's kind of like when the best ideas come out. I
Mhm.
suppose you could potentially view commission as like a collaboration between like the patron and the creator, but
Yeah,
I
but it's
don't
like
know.
these are the best ideas for progress, right? I'd say, and I don't think like the creative process is necessarily intended to create progress, and I think maybe that's the novel that's something that you're seeking from it. Like something that's just created for the sake of itself rather than to advance another concept.
Yeah, rather than to foist to something else. Yeah, I'm also like, there's a lot of worry that I have that if we promote this stuff in general, like it's already we've tried to suppress it like pretty strongly, actually, like just having people not talk about commissions at all. But like, it's clearly that stuff's never gone away, and I just worry that like being lighter on it in any capacity will get things to a point where people start to feel comfortable commercializing the time they spend on OS, and I don't think OS as a platform can survive that. I think everything falls apart if people start wanting direct compensation for all the time they invest in stuff. Oh man, that sounds fucking awful to say out loud. Holy shit. Um, it's just I think everything OS related has been kind of predicated on like free exchange and free expression and understanding and knowing that there's no money involved in that process. That like it doesn't matter, like you can be dirt fucking poor and like be accessing internet off like a an iPad you found in the bin running like a Windows VM on a server or something. I don't know. You can have some ridiculous situation like that and still be able to contribute fully without feeling like you need to pay to get your work seen. or looked at?
Yeah. It runs. So I've talked to people like not in regards to mapping, but for example, a different aspect, which is like running the tournaments. And essentially, the only way that like a lot of the people that I remember being around a lot of the people that were involved in the like World Cups, and they wanted compensation because they were doing it like for an official tournament and at a high level, and it was a lot of hours. But the thing is, people want in those positions want the ability to push themselves to whatever they think is capable, like what they think they're capable of in terms of quality, and they're thriving in that. But if they are not being compensated for it, then they're going to have to scale back what they are willing to provide, and most of them don't want to do that. So usually what ends up happening is people are working until they drive themselves insane on stuff, uh and then they end up in the situation where like they feel exploited, and this is where like people are like, I'm being exploited, I want to be paid to alleviate this, essentially. So I've seen that sentiment as well, and I'm still not entirely sure where I like lie on that. Like, I support people's right to have that idea, but personally I don't hold that belief myself. Like, that's kind of, I guess, where I stand on that.
Right. I get that, and I'm worried, especially that the proliferation of like more people getting compensation is only going to increase that feeling for the people that don't get compensation, that they're missing out,
Mm-hmm.
or they're getting exploited, or like, oh, X is getting paid for this, why aren't I? Like, that's a perfectly reasonable question to ask if someone is suddenly getting paid for the work that they're doing for free. And I think a lot of people would be like, hold on, what the fuck? I'm being taken advantage of here. And like, there's some really confronting questions there about the nature of a lot of the ways volunteers contribute to OS in general, and be like, like, is it okay for people to sink this much time and this much effort into stuff and like and not be compensated for it? But every touch of it that I see, and I see it at levels that I think a lot of people don't, because I have talks with Peppy about stuff, and I see the stuff that happens on the collective and the open collective, and I see the way that the modalities that people contribute to the game have changed over time, and I don't think it's OS, as ridiculous as that sounds, and I just think it's damaging genuinely in a way that's very hard to express to the
Well,
general scope of the game.
it's turning it's just it's different in the sense of it's no longer like a community run like thing. It's like kind of like like a non-profit, right? Like, it's kind of
Yeah,
morphed into that direction, I'd say.
kind of, and I didn't watch the episode with Peppy, but I don't think he feels particularly great about it either. Like, a lot of it is my personal stuff with the way art turned out, but I think in general, just the proliferation of people expecting more and more money out of OS is like, I think that's probably one of the worst turns in my view. Like, it puts me off personally. Like, I just kind of don't want to. It takes the joy out of it for me, which I think is a part of the reason why I also decided to wind back like last year. I mean, I tried to retire. He just more or less had that thing at Yokohama, and he was all like, "Oh, why don't you come back?" And meeting all the team again and shit with that was like, made me realize that I miss this place a lot, and maybe I wasn't quite ready to go, but felt like I had to for reasons. And yeah, I don't know. I suppose I can say like money was kind of a part of a reason why I left originally. Like, I mean, it's no secret that I was like paid staff. I still am to some degree, but like
Hmm.
I was never very comfortable with that at any point throughout my time being paid. And I made Peppy clear about that much as well. Like, I just it's never sat right with me for the reasons I've described. Like, it's hard to quantify the stuff that I do and be like, oh, like, I'm getting paid for this, but X person isn't. And like, I feel like they should be, but like they can't be, because if everyone was, then this thing wouldn't exist, right? Like,
Yeah, I don't mean to
yeah,
call you old, but you're just a product of your times of like the internet you grew up in. Because
yeah, very much so.
this was the prevailing sentiment when a game like Osu was created, a game where like and started to really take off, right? Like, this is what the internet was like. Like, lol LimeWire and all that shit, right? Like this
Yeah, like,
Napster,
I grew up on
like yeah,
I grew up on like on Face Punch and fucking like IRC shit and like IRC channels for RuneScape and shit like that, and
yeah,
everything was free, and like I was in like I used to hang around like Where's spaces and stuff like that where people would
yeah.
like share pirated Photoshop and stuff via like fucking CTCP on goddamn IRC, which is like shit no one fucking
Yeah.
remembers exists any
And then
nowadays.
there's
It's like
like 3 forum software suites. You mentioned PHPBB, V
yeah,
Bulletin was the other one.
V-Bulletin,
And there was
the
another one
fucking
that I forgot about.
Infusion something, I something. It was the real
Yeah.
good one. It was the expensive one that people like. You need a what is it? Or
Yeah.
or
Hold on, I don't know. There's a
dot-
website.
I can't remember. It was like a something ION. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, that's
Oh, I didn't know
kinda
that
internet.
one. SMF? Holy shit. You remember
There was a-
SMF?
Yeah, I remember SMF. There's a ton of them. There's PHPB, SMF. There was fucking
Those were the 3 that I knew.
V-Bulletin was like the shit all the other sites used to use. Yeah, I don't know. There was tons, and you're right. I grew up in a space where like none of that exchange ever happened. So like like I'd
Yeah.
go and like make stuff with people like as like a 13-year-old on the internet, and like no money was ever brought up. You have like people used to make like graphics arts for stuff all the time, and it was like people never paid for that. Like that's like commission shit now, but back in the day you could like you'd fucking drop on down to someone's like DeviantArt or like their forum post where they hung out on graphics forums, and people would like fucking draw shit for you, like full fucking commission scope stuff for like free. They do it for fun.
Yeah.
And that's the kind
I've
of environment I grew up in and around, and that's sort of why I'm so uncomfortable with it, I think.
Yeah, I think having people hear that is really important because this is like this is the internet was a different place than it became, and most of the people watching this probably grew up on. Like this is we like in a very commercialized internet compared to where we used to be. So these beliefs are like old school, and OSA's kind of always been like an old school like internet vibes place. Even now, it's still behind the times in a lot of ways. But there's only so much. Unfortunately, time does keep going forward. Like you can only delay the inevitable, and it's more of like what really happens, I guess.
I can describe it in like I can describe it in one statement. Is like I was 16 when I was a bat, right? I was 16, right? And nowadays you can't become a member of like the GMT or I think the NAT if you're below 18. Like I just wouldn't be able. I would have completely missed my window nowadays because like I'd be too young or I'd have to lie about my age. I mean, I lied about my age all the time when I was 16 anyway, but it bothers me that door's closed. Like it's closed for good reason, good and reasonable, like reasonable reasons. Like there's very salient reasons why we don't want people in moderation positions with the amount of shit going around the internet nowadays.
Yep.
We had fucking like who was it? There was one GMT. He was like 12 at one point, and they were like moderating the game. And as far as I know, that all went down fine. But man, like it really could not have gone. It could have really like not been fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, and then you also just have like the various like GMTs and alumni getting outed as pedophiles and crap like that happening. Like,
yeah, the crap like that happening, and like then crap like that. Some of them being your friends as well. Is like
yeah,
really
holy
annoying.
shit! Like, because I'm just thinking of it, like, you knew these people, like.
Yeah, I did. I thought I knew them anyway.
I mean, look, there's only so much you can know about some people. I don't.
Yeah, I know. But you
I
always
would.
wonder, like,
We can't blame you for that shit. Like, it's not right to do that. So.
you always wonder though. You always like, I mean, like, was I not saying something? I don't know. It's not great when that shit happens.
Yeah. But. Yeah. Yeah. I also remember. I want to circle something kind of back of like to something we said earlier about like getting into the game of it's how it's harder to kind of get into like established positions where you can like go and talk to the right people and like solve these problems or whatever. And I'm thinking about like when those GMT apps went up for the mapping and modding roles, and I think of the timing of when that happened, at least for me, of it happened after I'd already proven that I did it and was kind of on my way out. Like I was like writing on my last project, and that was that. And I think the filtering mechanisms, like I've gotten to the point where we now have expected everyone to do what we want them to do in GMT, but that means that they've already done it and therefore are less likely to do it again.
Yeah, well, they're
Especially when
inactive
in the
and then
concept of OSU cycles.
yeah, no, I think you're right. That's been an issue with the GMT since I fucking first became one. I don't know. I don't know why I don't know why the requirements for it are so stringent all the time. I tried to ease it a little bit with some of the interim appointments, but then like some of those interim appointments back in like 2018 or 2019 or something, they didn't work out so good. So people are just like, "I will just go back to the old way," and yeah, these where we're at again.
Yeah,
The
I think it's just the amount of turnover that you have in it. So like BN's turnover and cycle, BN's and NAT cycles extremely quickly. Like people burn out of that shit really quick, and then the new generation comes in very quickly. So it's like the lower end of the OSU cycle. BN's cycle out a little slower than that. And that kind of keeps the whole like norms of mapping quality. GMT, there are some people in the group still that have been there
Hands
for 10
on.
years. Like,
Yeah.
so I think it's the rate of change of like just the rate of cycling of the people is affecting the rate that the institution can change, and therefore people can actually get into that institution. So
I think the GMT is its whole topic on its own though, because it's a particularly resistant thing to change because of the whole collective consensus thing. That a couple of people can like assert opinions really strongly in that space, and then people will kind of follow them. It's kind of politically enmeshed in a way. Could spend a lot of
Ye-
time talking about that, but I don't think it's necessarily something people here want to listen to very much.
it's something I've seen. It's one of the reasons I did not contribute as much because I've like in the first 2 months I was like, let's see where this institution's like, and then I found out, and I'm just like, all right, great. So we do nothing because it's the easiest. So and yeah,
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I really do.
which is sad because it's like I'd like this was like it come from something like do something of course ace really push that thing to its limit, come over to OS or to the GMT, and it's just like, wow, this is an institution that essentially. If I talked about like, okay, I could be like with a unite with the firebrands, ride the wave, knock people out of power with the like the mapping scene or whatever, that's just impossible with the GMT. So it's like, all right, so what tools do you have for this? Do you just have to be louder than everyone else?
Yeah, honestly, pretty much. You just have to cause a fuss in a way that makes people. Well, I mean, if you've heard about the tournament committee thing, stuff that happened recently, like a whole bunch. Have you heard of that actually?
Oh, I keep a couple tabs on that, but I want to hear your POV on that.
The badge strike? Yeah, the badge strike was kind of like, oh my god, okay, they can't fucking do this. And then I read their document, and like 70% of the document is like, you know, it's kind
Oh,
of
it was successful.
it
Oh,
was
I actually did hear about this from one of the organizers of the pad strike,
yeah,
and I was just like, "There's no way this happens," and then they did it. Wow.
it was successful, but like the initial response to the document that they read was like, man, like you really had to like pick apart things. You had to like look past the ceremonial stuff, like the positioning of this is a strike, we are the people, because like they had legitimate issues that weren't being addressed, and I think for a while, a lot of the perception of that document was on the 70% of the ceremonial stuff, and people getting really hung up about that and not feeling appreciated that for the work that they were doing. And then we kind of had to have a lot of discussion about that to wheel things around to the issues that they were pointing out, because the issues that they were pointing out were things that the TC members had also pointed out in the past, but just hadn't changed because sometimes it takes energy to get a stone rolling, right? So in that
Yep.
case, their document came at like a time where they had issues and the TC had issues, and then it took a little bit of maneuvering, but they eventually got to a point where they're like, okay, we can fix the issues that they're bringing up, and then they feel good because they're like, oh, we did a strike and it was effective because it was, and then we get the bonus of the TC feeling like they didn't necessarily like let that happen. No, that's not the right way to put that. How do I angle this?
Oh, they fixed it.
They fixed it. Yeah, they fixed the issues there.
Oh, that's amazing.
Everyone were having trouble with. Yeah, no, it got fixed and everything's better now, like way better. There's more TC members, there's more transparency. It all worked out because TC is a relatively new thing, right? So it's not bolted on yet. It's not grown moss like the other systems have.
Yeah, it's just like it came from the system that grew moss, but I guess it was not clearly enough of one. So that's really good to hear.
It's new and exciting, and that's kind of what like Project Love sort of did to Love too, right? Like they're new, so they have the mandate to be new and exciting. Whereas I think a lot of the reason why the whole fucking let's kill the gnat thing keeps coming up is because like it's old as fuck, crusty as hell. There's a lot of baggage associated with it, and I think people kind of just want to be done with the baggage of the name and the title, so they can just kind of like try new things again and not necessarily have things become the way that they were. So I think that's why the regular cycle of Kill the Gnat comes up every like year and a half.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Wow. This is turning into a gold mine for anyone that wants to change things for the better in OS at this point. Like we've talked through probably 15 years at least of OS shit.
It's a long time. Also, Peppy is like supportive of people like flipping the table. By the way, if you flip the table in the right way, he's all for it. Like he's the same mind as I have about this kind of thing, where you're like, if things are not working, they need to like be changed. He's not attached to the current structures, and now, not in the way that we are. Not because we've kind of grown up in or around them, right? Like he doesn't have that attachment. So if you can angle things in a way that necessarily like makes sense to him and is like a good try, and you have like the mandate from the general community or the general people, like even in staff and stuff, to try stuff, then you can go for it.
Yeah, you got to figure out how to flip the table from the opposite corner towards you, such that it falls towards you. That's how you have to like table.
You have to like slam it with your fist hard enough that it like flips towards you instead of you flipping it away from yourself.
Yeah, or just grow really long arms.
Really long arms, yeah, pretty much. But it can be changed. It's just really fucking hard. I mean, it was hard when I did it as well. Like, it's not easy.
It's hard. You got to know the right people, be in the right place, and have the right ideas. Yeah.
I think just having the right idea is enough. I think because you'll buy people in with that, and then they'll help you move it.
Well, you got to be able to buy in the right people, which means knowing the right people.
Yeah, true enough. I mean, ideally,
and being able to get those people's ears, right? It's kind of hard to talk to, like, say you have no connections, right? What if you're a new person in the community and you have no connections at all, but you have a good idea, right? Well, nobody's gonna listen to you. It doesn't really matter. It's pretty hard to find.
I mean, I've had I'm saying this affectionately. I've had piss randoms in my DMs, had good ideas, and then I forwarded them onto people. And I think if you send Peppy an email with a good idea, he reads them and he does not care who you are, because he will not remember who you are. He has to be reminded a lot of the time who people are. So everyone's kind of on a blank slate with him.
He thought that this thing was like suspicious, I think as he put it. This podcast.
Oh yeah, he probably would. He would feel that way. Yeah.
Well, I think it was more that I emailed him instead of having Nafi reach out to him in internal.
I don't even run the show.
I know. Well, there's that, but also like I didn't think it was appropriate for Nafi to be messaging Peppy internally for something like this. But anyway, that's besides the point.
Yes, it's always a hard thing to walk.
Yeah.
Easy to do.
Well, anyway, I think that we need to move on from these conversations and kind of backtrack to what we were going to cover at the beginning of the show.
What?
What do you mean? What?
Oh, okay. No, go ahead.
Oh no.
What do you mean? What?
I'm like,
do you have more things you want to talk about?
No. I'm just more of like, what? We had other things we were going to cover? Like.
Oh, okay. No. Yeah. So we keep talking about like all these great people that, contribute things. But every year we do have people who contribute great things and they actually get recognized. At least we try to recognize them in that annual news post. Are you ever involved in that news post, Ephemeral? Were you involved in this one? This year's?
For community choice, you mean?
Community contributors.
Oh, contributors. Yeah, every year except last year, I think. Were me, yeah.
Well, maybe you can talk and shed some light. Well, by last year, you're talking about like the 2023 or the 2024?
The most recent one. I wasn't, because I wasn't here for it.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, anyway, on the screen I have up the 2024 contributor. So obviously, we have people like 0x84f who do lots of news, and also I think that they're like co-leading the GMT. Is that right?
Yes.
They're one of three. Yeah, it's him, Phoenix, and Cobalt, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sakura, Ascendance, who's just always been around, I feel like.
I'm so happy to see some of these people here.
Yeah, they should have been there a while, but yeah, they should have been there.
Sakura is so cool. That's the best. And then Ascendance and Creeper should have been there like 3 years ago, but you know what? They're still cool, so it's great.
Creeper's been in the NAT for a long time.
Yes.
I have a great story about Sakura.
Wait, holy crap! You got Ephemeral on there finally. Holy shit!
Wait, where are we? Oh, this guy.
But you got in there for the our place stuff. But I remember like commentating tournaments with this guy in 2016. Holy crap! Good for him.
No
He was the
kidding.
last one of those.
Yeah, I found it.
Yeah, they the way those work. Do you know how they work at all? Like, has it ever been shared publicly how they work? I don't know if we've done
votes?
that.
Look, I got the badge and I was happy.
Yeah, the way they work, just in case it's not public. I think it's public knowledge, but I don't know. We're just gonna say it's public knowledge. The way they work is that like we usually have a handful of people we know offhand just from working with them that they deserve it, and they're kind of like the first pick ones. But we also put out a document in internal, and we ask for nominations from the rest of the team for people who they think deserve it. And then we everyone like a group of people from ops kind of goes through the list and discusses them and picks out a bunch and earmarks a bunch of people for consideration in future years and shit, because it's kind of meant to be like, it's like exemplary contribution in like a short time frame, or it's like a long-term slow burn thing that we're looking for. It's like either one of those two configurations of people ends up as community contributor. So there can be some people who like do stupid good stuff and then like you don't immediately get it, or they get it a year or two after. I think like Ascendance is a good example of that, I think, because his activities kind of like stop-start for a while. So it took a while for him to sort of like get in the system. But he's been brought up a few times, and it was kind of just like, yeah, okay, well, he's probably like a candidate for like a year from now. And I think he was brought up like 2 years ago, actually. So
you want to talk about firebrands? Ascendance is a fire. He is catches firebrand. Like this guy, like he was walled from the NAT for so long, and then overcame all of that and just started going through it. Like the guy, yeah.
So was like Now Tamori, I think, was another good example. Inadar.
Yep.
He was another example of someone who got. I valued his opinion on things a lot. Even though he like would fucking tear into me at times, but I mean, such is his right. Who am I to argue? But he had good points. So like, who am I to argue, right?
Hey, he's a New Yorker basically. So he's
it's honest, just like, right?
Yeah, that they're all assholes, but they know what they're talking about, and they have some good intentions.
Okay, yeah, let's be real here. Not every New Yorker knows what they're talking about. They're just very vocal about whatever they are talking about.
Yeah. Fair enough. Thanks for the correction. I don't live there, so
No. But yeah,
always know they're walking here.
I'm walking here.
Hey, buddy, I'm walking here.
Oh my goodness.
Just some casual statism, as it were. But yeah.
Fine. This is good.
Yeah.
But yeah, what was the actual question about this? I've forgotten.
Was there a question?
No, I think we're just talking about them.
Conversation.
Yeah, we're just talking about them.
Yeah,
Maxis is here now. finally.
Big
bunch
Max
of people.
is.
Holy
Yeah.
crap! He
So
was
like
there.
all the like Taiko catch BNs or NATs rather finally show up. that
Ones that have been there
been
for.
around
I
forever.
wasn't
Yeah.
involved in this one. This one was mostly heavy, I think. But that's why I kind of like you know I mentioned a while ago that I wasn't sure I could leave for a while, but I mean Heavy showed up and that kind of changed things a bit. 'Cause I think there was like 3 or 4 people before him that I'd kind of been sort of like coaching a little bit, hoping that they'd step up and stuff. But I didn't really feel comfortable going or like stepping back until like Heavy started showing up properly in the past couple of years. So I'm glad he's around. Because he has viewpoints on stuff like this that I never could have had because he's attached to recent scene, like he's living
Mhm.
it still. I stopped living it
Yeah.
a long time ago. It all
I
became
frankly don't
politics to me for like
know.
years.
I don't know how he has time for anything. Frankly,
Yeah,
like
me neither.
he
I
does
think he's pretty
so much.
full on. Yeah, he's pretty full on. I think he's like a university or something as well. So he's like doing that all wise at uni. Crazy.
Yeah. I mean, he does like web dev similar to Pishy Fat. He does like tournament things, mapping things, mapping contest things,
The whole shebang.
NAT things, BN things, like everything.
Love
I guess
things.
Stuff that I don't even know. Yeah, like a
I
lot
guess-
of news posts and such as well.
community contributor is kind of like a good example of like of one of my worries about like getting bolted on or like being a barnacle because like past a certain point your perception kind of shrinks when you enter positions like this because you end up getting focused on the positions of the particulars of the position itself and you start
And people
to
who are
lose
working
scope.
adjacent to you, yeah.
Yeah, it all starts to be about like who you immediately spend time with. And when you time spent is all immediately and internal, like you lose track of stuff. It's
Yeah.
inevitable. So it's a really great thing to have someone like actually from the community up in the reins again. I think
Definitely.
it's sorely needed for a long time, and I'm glad it came to pass. So.
Yeah, I'm just looking at these names. I'm like really glad to see all the tool people getting the rep they reserve. Like Fun Orange's tool, like actually just changed how people like play this, like how people improve at speed in this game drastically. Like I don't think that you'd have people. So the wooting stuff happened after, but like before the wooting, I don't think people would have picked up speed as much as they did without what Fun Orange's tool did. Like and stuff like Osu Plus, like I use that like a shit ton. Those Discord bots, seen them around, like they're really useful. Like holy crap.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That's
Although
the
I
thing
was
with CC.
surprised this year, I think is the first year that there wasn't a single standard really anyone in here. That I can remember at least.
Well, they're standard people, but they're not known for being standard. Like a
Right,
man is a
exactly.
standard person, right?
Like,
Like,
well,
but
Yeah.
people.
But like
It was
nobody like
also
mapping really. Or
there's
anything
the
like that.
uncomfortable truth there as well that standards kind of like it's stagnating a little bit from what I can see.
Is
Like
it?
in terms of
You know more than anyone.
I don't know, from where I can see the number of what I'd call like exemplar people in standard has kind of steadily dropped for like 5 or 6 years now. Like
yeah,
Well-
we
I think that's
what-
just a matter of scale because you
It's
have
as-
a lot of people that are really, really impressive and they run great communities or they do great things, but it's just so large that it's not somebody everybody is going to
knows, yeah.
know about.
It's nebulized,
Yeah.
right? It's spread out, and I think a lot of that spreading out also kind of like inhibits the ability for new people that like the really, really like prominent exemplars and like smaller game modes that you see from coming to fruition. Like
Well-
things like MF Man, for example. Like I mean, you know about him, right? Because it's like lower game mode stuff, smaller game mode stuff, closer circles, right? Like everything's not spread out as far as it is in standard.
Yeah, well, I just kind of happened to know him because I was like with him when he ran those tournaments, like all way back when. So that's what. But like, I didn't even know he did the art place stuff. So that's just crazy. No, but I think of like when I think of standard, I'm like thinking about like so I was involved with mentorship early on. That's how I was recognized as a contributor. And then I think of the projects, other major projects on that scale, and I think of like a lot of stuff under Vinx's umbrella, the Corsair stuff, the MCA, like this, that, the other, like that sort, the OWC like mapping stuff, like that's kind of where things where the standard community's like largest contributors were, because the other side of that were like competing mentorship programs that had like poor reputation attached to them, like Avalon, etc. And then it's like, mentorship's still running, it's still doing, but I think most of the people there have been recognized. Not all of them, but most of them, and it's just kind of, it no longer takes the limelight like it used to. And then stuff like Corsace is, that's been downscaling for the past year or two. So
Yeah,
think
but
that's
mostly
what's
because
going on.
Vixus moved on, didn't he?
Sort of. Yeah, he had to get some stuff together. So that's why he hasn't logged into his account. So he kind of pulled the Charles of like, I'm not logging in until blah blah blah. If we see him again. And then, but like Corsair still kept running even after he left like that. And he still kept updating the website and all of that. It's just that it's, since like after like 2013, 2023 was like the, like, I'd say 2022 was like the apex, and then 2023 and onward started to decline some as far as the main Corsair tournament. MCA has become more of an afterthought, as it's been more prone to a lot of vote brigading, things like that. So
Yeah, I don't know what, there's a term for this.
And like I feel like the community is so fragmented that there's never like a satisfying resolution to MCA. There's never really like a clear, like, dominant person that everyone's like, yeah, that they deserve to win or whatever, right?
Yeah, I heard the
Or
satisfaction
if
of the
they're,
latest one.
I mean, I don't
Yep.
even. Well, the latest one's actually currently undergoing the voting stage.
You should vote for storyboards, because if you can vote for any mode, you can vote for storyboards. Please vote for storyboards. Thank you. And
Yeah,
don't
so I
call
guess
it category vote, because storyboards are in every mode. Thank you.
I guess this kind of leads us to the next major sort of announcement from this last month was MCA of 2024. So right now we have 2 days left in that voting phase, but the nomination phase has already happened. But I like looking at the nominations, I was not like necessarily like, yeah, this is an obvious choice for, best contributor or whatever, right? Nobody from standard, particularly because again, we're voting mode-based stuff, and I wasn't really sure that anyone really stood out quite as much as somebody like Hyvee did.
It's
Fair.
just a common trend the last couple of years. I don't know why. I have theories, but I don't think they're substantiated by anything.
I know that I know that a lot of the people in standard got tired, so I do know
Yeah.
that.
It's
I know
old,
I'm
yeah.
one of those people that got tired. So
Old, yeah. It's an old fucking thing. Surprised.
mhm.
Like, and there's
But
like 50 million other things pulling for people's attention nowadays as well. So,
Definitely.
tons of
yeah, and
games and
also
shit.
Hyvee took over the MCA stuff, because like MCA was standard dominated, like it was standard founded, standard dominated for probably like 8 years, and then no one in standard wanted to step up to run it
Hyman stepped
anymore.
down this year.
Oh, who stepped up in place?
Momoyo and Maxis. Big
Okay,
Maxis.
so now we have joint standard mania. Interesting.
Yeah.
This is really funny to me, actually. I've kind of seen
Oh.
parallels a little bit in like Mania, in Mania's progression, in like how it's, its politics go to the early days of standard. It's like the game modes are like all on the same time frame, but like slightly behind each other a little bit.
Yes.
It's like Mania's in second place at the moment. It's very rapidly catching up to the discourse that standard had about like 6 or 7 years ago.
That's because
Tycho and
Mania
Tycho
came
and
out
Ken-
7 years later than the other modes, so it's 7 years behind.
It's a little bit more. Like, Tycho's further behind again, though. Like, Tycho's still very like old days to me. It reminds me a lot of the initial game when I first joined it. It's Tycho from what it sounds like.
Yeah.
And Catch is
I
kind
think
of just
scale.
like doing its own thing in the corner.
I don't know. Also, doesn't Mania also have to deal with like the baggage of being like
VSRG
a
stuff, yeah.
keyboard VSRG with columns and stuff like, and
Yeah, they're
people
dealing with a
bringing
lot of
in
that.
all of those conventions. So
Yeah,
And that was a
they
big
do. That's
conflict.
something Standard never had to deal with.
yeah.
Oh, maybe not
Well,
true. Maybe it did. There was
yeah, I don't think
EBA
that's quite
style
true.
stuff.
But I mean, you
There
have
was
people in Standard bringing in stuff from the VSRGs and trying to turn it into something that's
Yes.
suitable for Standard.
Yes.
So that's pretty
True.
common too. Like
Yes,
for
yes, yes.
example,
that does happen.
with the most recent Loved vote, there was Adularescence mapped by Sulfur, and that was basically Sulfur's attempt to turn a VSRG into like a lot of those conventions into a Standard map. And then you have people like Fire Rage pointing out, rightly so, that this doesn't work, right? Like it's just completely unsuitable. And then that resulted in it going loved instead of ranked.
Well, Sulfur's case is interesting because Sulfur is trying to do it based off of the sensation of the VSRG, which is so abstract from basically. It's so abstract that even if you played the game, you probably would not get it. Like, it's very individualized. You can really only reduce it down to so back to the definition of like soul creativity. That's kind of how I see the fear maps, is like, this is one person's soul experience of another media, and that is the idea being used to generate this map. So
Definitely highly contentious, to say the least.
it's pure personal expression like that is pretty intense. Like, it's very, very, yeah.
But anyway, MCA, go vote for Nafi for best storyboarder. Moving on.
Definitely unbiased opinion.
Yeah, right. We also had the community contributors for the elite nominators. So we have all those people there. It's pretty cool. I was surprised to see so many like newcomers, like new faces to the BN in here, like Goro and Mate. And then there's obviously some old faces, like
Lawrence
Lasse is
been
back.
around for a while, but he was Wanpachi, so some people don't recognize him.
Well,
as
yeah. He's been around in the mapping scene for a while, but he's not even been a BN for a whole year.
Dang.
So he's a new BN, is my point, right?
Okay.
I mean, Errol has been around for a year, but still relatively new. A lot of these people, like, yeah. Anyway, you get the point, right? And then we have some old faces like Lasse, who's got his third elite nominator badge. They had to make a whole new badge for him, and also for who was the other one that had that?
Some people just go fucking hard.
Yeah. It's good times. Good times. I frankly can't even imagine nominating these many maps. Like Errol doing 248 in a year. Like, I don't think I can imagine doing that.
Yeah, me neither, dude. I think I did like 30 when I was a bat, and I was already fucking done.
Yeah. I was doing like I was doing 3 a month, and I was good with that.
It's a lot of work.
Definitely. A lot of work, and it's fairly thankless, I would say. You don't really get a whole lot for it.
You give feedback, and someone either ignores it or argues with it. It's like, cool, all right. I gotta fucking spar with you now. All right.
Yeah, you gotta put in so much effort to say it, and it's like, yeah. Anyway,
that's modding for you.
It's something that I respect people who can do it.
Yeah, me too. Like,
religiously.
Especially the people that manage to do it without like causing arguments. That shit's a fucking art.
Yeah. I actually think I respect the people who can like, what am I going for with that? Who can like sort of stand up for their ideals, even if it means like, and then they can like rationalize it in a way that people can agree with, even if it is contentious. Like you have...
Yeah, that's definitely impressive, I think.
Yeah. They don't always end up on the right side of history or anything like that, but
No, they frequently don't.
Okay, guys, we've
It
been
seems
given
like-
a time limit today, so I wanted to touch on one thing before we headed out and like did our outros and stuff. There was a lot of talk about like nebulization of the modeling and mapping community, and that's absolutely true. And this is probably just going to be a new nebula. But this past week we actually started a new actual standard modding and mapping
that's so
hub.
true.
Tycho and Mania and Catch have had their own hubs for like forever now. And Standard has had a million different ones
Bunches.
by various people, but now there's a semi-official centralized one, which even if it becomes its own nebula of its own, I'm excited to see where it goes. And if you guys want to join it, you should, because it's an actual public center space for at least the Standard side of things.
Most definitely. We should everyone on the Standard should definitely be joining it. I mean, hey, it's not even run by the Standard guy. It's run by a radar. And that's kind of like what I find so funny about the whole not seeing a whole lot of people from Standard doing a lot of incredible things, like compared to what they used to in the past. And I think maybe part of that is a lot of the people from other modes are doing it for them. Like normally the role of starting up a Standard hub would have gone to somebody from Standard, but then Radar doing it from Tycho. So there's things like that.
It's good, I think. Maybe some of these smaller mode people can bring that small mode vibe back to Standard. I think that'd be great. I certainly miss it.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The
The other nice
Standard
thing is
will
that-
rise again. Is that what we're going? Like,
I guess the other aspect there is that because Standard is so polarized, it's really hard to find somebody that people can really rally around in Standard. Whereas, somebody from like Tycho from Standard, like nobody cares, right?
Yeah.
So like it's easier
True.
to view them as more of like an unbiased, like, okay, we can go kind of be in the same space as this person.
Standard be like, Radar, what the fuck's Radar?
Well, everyone knows who Radar is. If you don't,
Yeah,
you're living in a
everyone
rock,
knows
right?
Real and true.
So
Even.
thank you for bringing up that. I totally forgot about the group server, Nafi.
You're welcome.
Quick thing I'll touch on is that the editor is receiving more updates. They've finally added like the right click for new combo and right click to delete. They re-added that, which is nice. And the editor, you can get rid of the editor grid now, which is pretty cool. A lot of people just don't like it.
I always map on grid large, so yes.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I map on grid large too. So there's that. I don't know if I would get rid of the grid entirely, because like maybe subliminally the grid lines are helping a little bit, but yeah, I'd probably get rid of it. But anyway. And then there was also the Springtime Showdown art contest. So like basically the spring art contest. So the results are in. You can see the votes and the good artwork that has been made. Lots of great stuff there. So that's basically everything from last month.
There's going to be a lot more the next month as well.
Oh, there is one big announcement coming up next month. I'll tell you that much. Yeah.
I am out of the loop and I'll stay that way. Woo!
Woo!
Me too, brother. Me too.
No, you're not. You can't be out of the loop, Ephemeral.
I'm like half retired. I'm allowed to be out of the loop.
What the heck?
Oh, man.
Alrighty. Well, thank you everyone for watching today. You can find the VOD on our YouTube if you missed any important parts or you just want to rewatch something. Oh, I guess there was one other.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. It's been fun dredging up ancient memories.
Oh man, this is probably, it's gonna be hard to beat this one. This was such a fun conversation. So
Have you had Kishi on yet?
Yeah, no, not yet. We haven't had Pish yet. He is on the list of people who's already agreed to show up. Just a matter of finding the time.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
Fishy will be good. Fishy will be real
Yeah,
good.
Holy
we have
crap.
Pishy, we have Hy-Vee at some point as well.
I met him
we
in
have- we
Japan
have-
too. I met like fucking everyone. That's crazy.
Oh yeah. No, we have like basically everyone who's agreed to show up, but it's just we only try to do one of these a month or so, so it'll take a while to get through everyone.
Yeah.
There was one question in the audience that we wanted to ask you, Ephemeral. I actually don't know really what it means, but maybe you do, context-wise. But they want to know if you're thinking about adding an off-topic GMT soon.
An off-topic GMT. All right, yeah. No, they've wanted something like that for a while. Maybe, possibly. I mean, the way the GMT works is like any GMT can suggest another GMT. So I think A-Breaker is in off-topic a lot. He could potentially suggest one if he feels like it, and we can all discuss it. I mean, I don't see why not. Off-topic is pretty popular these days. I think it's like one of the most active forum boards we still have, which is kind of crazy.
Off topic is a fever dream.
It really is a fit. They have like elections and shit. They like elect a president and stuff. It's crazy.
That's beautiful. I love the sub nation of off topic. Like,
Yeah, I have no context, no idea what any of the hell this is.
oh my god,
It
just
sounds interesting.
I challenge you to spend a week spending every day reading at least 20 threads in that forum, and then you'll
20?
understand.
20,
yeah.
at least.
20 a week? How's it that active? Oh my god!
It's really active. There's like 8 or 9 new threads a day sometimes.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts. Like that place goes hard. Like
They're
Wow.
keeping to the old ways, and for that, I appreciate.
Ashton is telling us in the chat that it'll cause brain damage with an H.
Good.
So I think it's already got to him.
yeah. I mean, real Brainworms sponsored this podcast, so it's like that's where you could go get them. All right.
Well, if Off Topic doesn't want you to find out about your Miku obsession, you can join the VAT to spread that. Everyone there is obsessed with Miku by design.
As everyone knows, the age of 31 is in demand.
Alrighty, well, thank you for coming on the show, Ephemeral.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was good fun.
It's been our longest episode yet, so congratulations for making it this far.
Oh boy.
And congratulations to Half Slash for this is basically like how like somebody recently in the US Senate passed the record for like the longest filibuster.
Yeah, Cory Booker.
Yeah. This is
Yeah.
basically that. It's like the Half Slash show.
I've wanted a conversation like this for years, so
It truly was pent up energy being released.
Oh shit.
Alrighty. See you later, everyone.
See
All right,
ya.
see ya.
Peace.